I'm done. Hello, everybody. I'm assuming that we are live with Arn Raw here in the garden. I'm so excited. Arn, there he is. And we've been chatting for a few minutes. He showed up early and we were just getting ready. I'm really excited to have him here. And I've got so much to say about him. I want to just say once again to him, thank you very much, Arn, for showing up. I've been familiarizing my audience members with some of your material. If I get a copyright strike or two, I hope I could email you and maybe you would release the charges.
I don't have copyright on anything.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I play you all the time, and I've never gotten in trouble for it. And I think information should be free and available for everyone, especially the kind of information that you offer. So let me just tell my audience about you. Arn Ra is an American author. He's a public spokesperson. He's a teacher, educator, atheist, scientist. He's a video producer. He's arguably and maybe unintentionally a great stand-up comic, a thorough researcher, a historian, a walking encyclopedia, and sometimes a dictionary. He's a podcaster and an atheist activist. He's host of Raw Men podcast and a regional director of American Atheists. He had previously served as president of the Atheist Alliance of America and ran as a Democratic candidate for Texas's District 2 Senate seat. Among the video series he's released are Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism, Refuting the Irrefutable Proof of God, and How Arn Ra Disproves Noah's Flood. That's one of my favorites. Arn published his first book, Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism, in 2016. In March 2017, Ra resigned from his position as president of the Atheist Alliance of America to run for the Texas State Senate against Republican incumbent Bob Hall, the first Democratic candidate to run for the District 2 seat since 2002. Ra identifies as a feminist. He's a member of the Unholy Trinity, and he toured the United States and Australia with two other fellow atheist activists. And just to start off, Arn, any memorable moments that you can relay about that experience?
About the Unholy Trinity tour,
Yes.
the Atheist Foundation of Australia were exemplary hosts. They put everything together brilliantly. There was an entourage of 9 people flying from Sydney to Brisbane to Melbourne, and then Matt Dillahunty, host of the Atheist Experience TV show. We separately went to Auckland, New Zealand, and we went central New Zealand. So we were able to see a number of their tourist sites. Fascinating place, beautiful country. And then also we went, Seth Andrews and his family, Seth Andrews of the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. He went back to the States, and Matt and I went west. We went to Perth and got to experience Western Australia a little bit.
Nice. I bet
So
you
that
was
was
amazing.
a fantastic trip. They took great care of us, took care of everything, and it was brilliant.
So Australia really stands out, but you toured America as well. How far did you go through the country here?
Well, I have been as a speaker. I've been doing this for, I don't know, since 2012. I've been on the speaker circuit, and normally, in the pre-COVID days, I would be in a different city every month for a conference, convention, a rally, whatever. Seriously, every month. I would always have been on dozens of airplanes in any given year, as well as a collection of road trips everywhere.
Wow, busy guy, bopping around. And I'm telling you, traveling around is not
I've
my
been to,
thing.
yeah, it's been a pretty good run. I mean,
Takes it out of you.
I've been to 22 countries.
Does it exhaust you, all that
Since
traveling?
no,
It's
I
good.
mean, the way we did Europe was all wrong. I should have taken a little bit of extra time. We did 15 countries in 6 weeks. Is it that I may have the numbers wrong, but we would land someplace and go to the hotel, whatever, and then the next day we go to the gig, and then the next day we're in an airport again.
Sounds
And so
like a rock schedule, like a rock show.
yeah, it was a little bit like that. And it was great fun, but it's no way to see the world. I mean, we didn't see anything.
Do you ever,
there was no time.
when you're doing a lot of speaking like that and touring around, do you lose your voice or have problems speaking or anything like that?
I lost my voice once. I did. I had a laryngitis situation where inexplicable. I don't know why I just suddenly lost my voice, but I was supposed to speak to 500 people at a conference in Missouri, I think it was, and I just was probably like that. And the result was that the audio and everything was so bad that I decided I was going to do that presentation as its own standalone, as its own video, as an edited video. And so I did that, and the result was a lot better.
Excellent, man.
A lot better than a speech, I mean.
I've got a quote from you: "Beliefs inform actions." And I believe you were saying that drives you. Do you think that we can stop the madness if people would just start listening?
Well, I mean, I posted something today about important information that I think everybody should know, but that most of my own family will not even look at because it goes against everything I post either goes against somebody's religious beliefs or it goes against their political beliefs, and so they just blot out. So it's literal, figurative fingers in the ears, eyes closed, will not hear it. I try to talk to people in my family about certain things that we don't agree on, and there's no discussion. Once they realize that I'm talking about something they don't want to know, and that's the important thing. It's not just that they don't want to know what I'm telling them, and so they just shut all communication off.
So it's uncomfortable for them, and no one likes really being uncomfortable. So it's kind of like trying to find that place where you can keep people comforted while you educate or debate them. And I've noticed that you use humor a lot to do that. You can really set a crowd at ease with your humor. And sometimes it might, for some people, go unnoticed because your humor is subtle. But is it intentional?
Well, yeah, I toyed with the idea of doing stand-up comedy once upon a time, and realized that I'm just not witty enough to come up with that many jokes to keep things up. I can describe events of my life in a funny way, as a lot of stand-up comics do, but I didn't think that I had the wherewithal to approach, some of the comics that I really like, and so I decided that wasn't going to be for me.
Oh, that's too bad, because yours would be a different brand of humor altogether. I think it would be one of a kind, and that's what would set it apart and make it special,
Well, it also depends on, there's a number of things at play. And when I was a young man, I was a very good-looking young man, which is probably impossible to imagine now. but there's the that works when you're attractive that would not work
right
in my current state. So right. I mean,
that's a crutch, and Joey Diaz doesn't rely on looks. So I think you could pull it off, but I'm not going to push you. This is a question I don't know if anybody's ever asked you before, but what is your favorite scripture?
Ecclesiastes 3:18-21.
Okay, and what is it?
It's the only element of wisdom that I found in the entirety of the Bible.
Wow. Let's
hear
it.
It's only wise because it contradicts the rest of the Bible.
And what does it entail?
It says that humans should realize that they are but beasts. That when our breath/spirit, leaves our dead bodies, it doesn't go down into the earth, it doesn't go up into heaven. Who knows where it goes? Because they used to think that your breath was literally your spirit. That's why people think they have a soul. They don't have a soul. They have breath. And it's not when your oxygen leaves your body, or your carbon dioxide leaves your body. That's not your supernatural soul. You don't have a supernatural soul. But the passage in Ecclesiastes says that people refuse to acknowledge that they are beasts because of our vanity. That we think we're the shit. We don't realize that we are animals.
Right.
And that we should not even ponder what ridiculous things like does our spirit go up into heaven and everything, because all of that is beyond us, and there's no way to really know that. which when you consider who wrote it and when it was written, that's pretty brilliant actually, in that it contradicts everything else.
So we are, as a species, we're indoctrinated, it would seem.
Yeah, well, we're raised to believe certain things, culturally ingrained to believe certain things, but we also have propensities. I mean, I look just like my brothers, but we don't. That's the only resemblance there is.
I got
We
you.
don't think the same at all. We don't have remotely similar opinions,
And that's across the
and so
gamut.
there's no discussion.
You guys like different
I
sports
haven't
teams?
talked. I have not spoken with my brothers in years. I mean, years. And
What,
one of them changed his phone number so that I wouldn't talk to him
what's the
anymore.
age difference?
10 years and 15 years.
That's that's my sister and I are close. We're a year and a half apart, so I could see that being a problem just generationally. You know, you guys just seeing different things differently. But when you're in the same
Well,
family and you got the same genetics and you look the same, you live in the same environment, you raised by the same parents, may have gone to the same schools. You're right. It's a little confusing.
yeah, and my friends are much the same way. I mean, I have friends that we came from the same beginnings. We were in the same place, the same. I would have thought the same mindset once upon a time. But these are your good friends, right? These are people you get along with on most things. But you just tend to grow apart. So my best friend in high school is now a fundamentalist Southern Baptist minister
Wow.
and will not speak to me
That's
at all, ever.
and that's the thing, and we're going to get into that hopefully a little bit later in this interview. Coming together.
You got to wonder, how do you start out? How do you start out? Both of you are on par with like everything, and then he ends up a Southern Baptist minister running a Christian school where they teach that the Bible is the only source of truth in our world.
A
And me, I
girlfriend?
mean,
Was it a girlfriend?
how could you be? I'm sorry, what?
A girlfriend? I mean, maybe he met a girl that just had these beliefs and he really loved her, so he decided to just fall into it.
Well, I realize women can do that to a guy, but I don't think that's the situation.
Okay, it's different. Yeah, I've had women actually convert their religion in a relationship for me, and so I've seen it
That's an
happen.
interesting point. That's an interesting point I want to bring up. This just shows how the vacuity of religion. For most people, it seems to me that they wear their religion just like they do with a sports jersey. Like if you worship the Dallas Cowboys and everything in your house is covered with Dallas Cowboys paraphernalia, even if you don't even live in Texas, right? Yet the Cowboys are your team and you're going to root for them no matter what.
Hmm.
Uh, and it really is just like I don't watch football. I had to confess to my brothers. I think within the last decade, I had to I explained to my brothers that I had never watched a football game ever. That's all they do.
Well, that's a problem, and we talk about sports on this show from time to time. One thing that I will admit is in the last 2 years, my audience has actually shown me the benefits of sports. I used to be completely against them, 100%, and now I see, that with almost anything else in the world, it comes with good and bad. Sports has a lot of bad. It pits people against each other. It resembles war. It uses flags. And it puts people in a mindset. It's an unhealthy mindset, and I totally understand that.
Once upon a time, decades ago, sports heroes were heroes. They were revered in a big way. And now, if you look at the top players in the top teams, most of them, it seems, have criminal convictions.
Huh. Yeah. Oh, sad commentary on our progression. And are we really progressing, or are we taking steps backwards as a race? Do you think, Arn?
Well, we're definitely taking steps backwards.
I agree.
Right now, we are. Right now. But it's like a graph. When we see when you look at like climate change figures, you can see that it's up and down, but you can see that the up and down is rising. There are low points, but they're still rising when you collectively look at the whole thing. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're in a low point, but still rising. And Steven Pinker did a beautiful analysis of this in the Angels of Our Nature, or Better Angels of Our Nature, where he talks about how bad shit used to be.
Right.
I mean, you hear a lot of conservatives talking about how bad things are getting.
Right.
They want to imagine that there was a good old days when everything was better, and that everything's getting worse now. But statistically, that's absolutely wrong. If you go back and watch movies from yesteryear, from like the 1920s and 30s, you'll see that there were things that were regularly tolerated, expected even, that were normal, that are wholly unacceptable now. Like there's a movie, Freaks, is a perfect example of
I
that.
haven't heard of that one.
I think Freaks was 1931,
Oh.
and in that movie, have you seen it?
No, it was before my time.
Okay. I've seen it. I'm not that old. So if you watch a really old movie like that, you'll see that somebody meets a trans person in Freaks. They meet a trans person, and their expected reaction was to punch that person in the eye. That's what we were expected to do in 1931.
Wow.
Where, of course, that guy would be jailed for assault, right? At least today.
Right.
So there's a lot of that. The way that children used to smoke commonly in this country, and of course they used to work in factories in this country. If you go back 100 years, just a single century from today, the United States was one of the shittiest places in the world to live. In certain areas, your children would have to work in factories, and there was no provisions for how long they had to work. They would have to work every day of the week. They would have to work from sun up to sundown. They would have to sleep, 18 people in a single apartment. Nobody could afford anything. And there's no restrictions or regulations or anything on you. You can't trust the food or the water. Either one were poisoned. There's no sick time. If you get sick for whatever reason, you just lose the money, right? So we've had all these provisions. We've had unions. We've had Food and Drug Administration. We've had all these regulations on nutrition, and we have like restrictions on how long you can force people to work, and you have to allow them holidays, and you have to allow them sick time, and every good thing that we have in this country came from the left. I just want to point that out. And yet we're supposed to be the evil ones?
So it's about the conversation, and this is what I'm saying is there is a lot of name calling, there's a lot of accusations, there's a lot of people on the right who say the left is evil, there's a lot of people on the left who say the right is evil. The thing I love about you is that you go out in the street, you go on Zoom, you tour around, and you communicate these differences with people. You keep a conversation going, and man, your conversations range so wide. You're not just an atheist, I'd love to. One of the questions I'm going to ask you, I'll just ask you right now. What's one of the coolest things you ever found when you were going out looking for fossils or looking for basically artifacts? What have you found out there?
I was in South Africa a few months ago in February and March, and I was on a paleontological expedition that was funded by the University of the Witwatersrand, and I was with a team of people that were all the experts in their field, and I so value the trip that I had there, even though it was hugely taxing on me physically. They would drive. We went out to a very remote place. There was no internet connection. There's like, we were just out in the middle of nowhere. It's like frickin' Mars. And they would drive us. We had like a farmhouse that we were staying in, but there's no comforts or amenities. There's no air conditioning. There's no there's no internet router. None of that. It's an old concrete building, and the kitchen is outside.
Wow. Outside kitchen.
Not even kidding. So they get up to make breakfast one morning, and there was a mongoose in the kitchen. And there were baboons. And baboons are absolutely terrifying things. They are a hell of a lot bigger than you think they are. and they are faster than you can believe. So, so, baboons are terrifying. And I was at this place, and what they would do is they would drive us out to a location where they want us to go search for fossils and just drop us off. So at like 8 o'clock in the morning, there we are in different locations. I'm wandering around alone in the deserts of South Africa until 5 o'clock at night, or excuse me, in the afternoon, right? 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And when it gets up to 42 degrees Celsius, you know you can normally handle that, but not when you've been in it since 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, the first couple of hours of the day are perfect. It feels great. The last couple of hours of that day, you're absolutely sapped. Got no damned energy at all. And but it was a very good experience. Being able to just be in the environment and be hunting along. It was frustrating for me because I went several days where I don't find anything, but all of the people, like I said, these are the top experts in the world in their field, and they go all around me and they're finding stuff where I already looked. And even when they show me what I just looked at, you know, this is the advantage of years of experience. They can pick up something on the ground and just show me and tell me exactly what it is, and I still can't see it until they get it back to the lab, and then they do this process where they can extract. They'll pick up markers on the surface for something that's entirely embedded in matrix, and they'll pull out of that roundish rock. They'll pull a beautifully detailed skull.
Wow. So
and they recognized it because of a couple of surface marks that indicate that this is where the bone shows on the surface of that rock. And I did find some things on my own. Not great things. I mean, found a handful of bones. I found some vertebrae. I did find a skull cap. Unfortunately, it didn't have any teeth, and you need teeth.
Right.
Teeth are diagnostic.
Sure.
But I had a skull cap that did have a pineal foramen, which was indicative of the type of therapsid that I was looking for. And it was beautiful. It was intricate. It had great detail. But unfortunately, without the teeth, it's not diagnostic. So all I can say is that it is a therapsid.
So is that thing sitting on is it sitting on a pedestal inside your living room with lights shining on it?
Not from South Africa. It is that you cannot take a fossil out of South Africa.
Wow.
So I had put 2 or 3 things in my bag that I was going to take home, and then I was instructed that no, if you ever want to leave this country, you.
I mean, I like Africa.
You better.
Elephants are great and all.
You better leave those fossils here.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm gonna change directions here. Matt Dillahunty. He's one of my favorites. I watch Atheist Experience all the time. He's just so fun and funny and serious all at the same time. Yeah, and he doesn't take shit from anybody, and I just love his attitude. It's one of the things I love about you, one of the things I love about him, and it's just I connect on that level with you guys. It's a Texas thing, I think. You guys are tough. But anyway, Matt says that Paul's account of meeting Jesus is evidence of Jesus's existence. Now, I called into the Atheist Experience one day, and him and I had a conversation about it, and he was really nice about it. And the last thing he told me, it was hilarious. He told me to put the bong down. He says, put the bong down. I think that's one of his favorite things to tell people. But where do you stand on one man's account of the existence of another, or on the existence of anything?
I went through a bit of a painful lesson. I thought I was being skeptical when I was a young man, and I wanted to explore spirituality. I was raised in Southern California as a child, and I've had to fight back that accent because I've lived in Texas for a number of years, and I realized that I still talked exactly like the guys from Van Halen.
Yeah, that's a problem in Texas, sure.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I've like lived in Texas, for like years, and yet I'm still talking like that guy,
Man, I wish you made videos back then. I'd like to hear that accent.
Yeah, isn't it great that, I mean, in my generation we didn't have, like, everything's like got a camera on it, So like I'm just completely out of that now. So yeah, I actually did have to work on the accent to scroll that down.
Okay.
When I left California, Mammoth was just playing at the Whiskey, and Mammoth, of course, was Van Halen before Van Halen was Van Halen.
Right, I had heard
So,
that. That's right.
so that's the generation I'm coming from.
Okay, so back to Matt. Yeah.
I became a reborn Christian at one point, which is an event that I really don't understand now. How the fuck did I ever become a reborn Christian? For all of an afternoon.
What was your age?
19.
Okay. Okay.
And I remember that my best friend at the time, who is now a Southern Baptist minister, I asked him, how do I know that this elation, the euphoria that I'm feeling is really Jesus, and that it's not, something psychosomatic or a demon or something like that? How do I know that it's not coming from somewhere else? And he grabbed me by both shoulders and just said, just keep telling yourself it's Jesus until you believe it.
That's great.
And that was an admission that you make believe what you want to believe, and not because it's true, but because that's what you want to believe. And that was so overtly dishonest that I was deconverted in that instant.
Wow.
That was my last.
You could see
that was my
yourself. You
last-
could see the hypocrisy. It just shines right. It's a mirror.
Yeah, that was my last breath as a Christian right there. I was done. Now, I had to ponder for a while. I no longer accepted Jesus at all. But I didn't know if there was a God. Now, see, the idea of a God never appealed to me in the first place. I always had a different concept of the way life works. A wrong concept, but a different concept. The first time I ever heard a description of anything supernatural that I thought sounded legitimate was honestly Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You saw me do this first? I called that shit. I called that shit, and I just spilled my cannabis all over me, but it's okay.
When he said that the Force is an energy field created by all living things, it surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together.
Yes.
Now, if you read the book, because I was a huge Star Wars nerd, when I was like 14, I remember reading Star Wars. Right after the movie came out, I had one of the books. He goes on, it says, you can control it, but it in turn controls you, like controlling the waves of an ocean. You can make a wave in the ocean, but you can't make a wave that will move you. Something like an analogy like that. And so I had the idea that these midichlorians were tiny phosphorescent little blue sparks that these are that was produced by all life. I thought that life was animated by a spiritual force, that we have the prime material plane where everything is just matter, and then we have the spiritual incorporation of that, and then when you combine them, it's like when you build a figure out of wet clay. So you have nice wet clay, and it's moldable and malleable, it can move, right? So that's like life. But then when you leave it alone, when the moisture evaporates out of the clay, it becomes solid again. It just becomes a rock, right? So I thought life was much the same way, that when you die, the life force emanates out, and you just become dust to dust, as they speak.
Right.
While your spiritual essence recombines with the biosphere, or just like the water coming out of the clay recombines with the hydrosphere.
Sure.
And so I had this analogy going in my head that this is what I thought it was, and I thought that there was a requirement for a supernatural aspect to animate life.
Make it all work.
As a lot of people do. A lot of people still think this way. And I remember being in a biology class for science majors and realizing that there's absolutely no necessity for this at all. When they show you on a molecular level how life operates, how life functions, you realize that none of that is true. None of that is necessary. None of that is even, there's not even room for that. We have all of these mechanical features of how life functions, and they're not just complex, they're stupidly, unnecessarily over complex. The incredible complexity of life disproves a designer, because an intelligent designer would make something that was simple and efficient. But life is stupidly complex and not remotely efficient. Look at the process of photosynthesis, for example. I mean, can you imagine a more convoluted Rube Goldberg system than that? This is this cannot be what intelligent designers say. Oh, this is the way it should work. No, if an intelligent designer were working on it, would be a much, much simpler and a much more efficient process than that. So, as a science major, you get a slightly different level of classes than if you're going for a Bachelor of Arts degree. The classes are completely different. I found that out when I went to school. And the classes for science majors are a lot tougher, and there's a lot more detail and a lot more math. And when they show how these processes work, you're like, that's stupidly, unnecessarily convoluted. No intelligent designer ever would concoct this.
Well, Arn, that's one thing let me interrupt you. I'm sorry. That's one thing I love about you is that you come from every angle when you're talking about a subject. I understand we kind of got off track here because what I'm getting at is, you go. I've listened to your video this morning. I've listened to this one over and over again. It's the one where you're discussing Jesus isn't who we think he is. He may not even been, and you start talking about different versions of him, and you go through all this stuff. I had asked you when we started this, I said, when Paul says that he met either someone that knew Jesus or he met Jesus, and that Matt Dillahunty takes that as evidence that Jesus may have existed, I ask you, where do you stand on one man's account of the existence of another? I think I know where you stand on it, but I'm going to go into this on Matt Dillahunty for a second.
Well, Dillahunty and I don't always agree. Okay, and he has shown that he has been right a number of times. So I want to give you full credit, but that doesn't mean that he's right all the time. I'm not saying that I've ever proven that I'm right and he's wrong. That's never happened.
That would be hard to do.
I do have a different opinion.
Right.
I do have a different opinion on this, and despite our discussions, I still have an independent position on this. Now, he's never identified as a mythicist, but he's never actually conclusively said that mythicism is not a thing. And I would say that he and I probably are both on the same side, that we would not identify with Carrier's version of mythicism. I was influenced by Price on his version of mythicism in some degree. I want to clarify. There are people who say that the entirety of the Jesus legends are absolutely myth, that they're based on Hebrew angelology. That would be Carrier's position, and that's not necessarily mine. What I see is that when you report anything, like when I've been on the news a few times in my life for various reasons, long before I became an activist, and I noticed that the news reports everything wrong. I mean, a couple of times that I've been on news stories, I've noticed that all the details of the story have been completely screwed over by the reporter.
The game telephone.
And that's when they have no reason to change that. There's no motivation. They don't have the bias. They don't have the impetus. Why would a reporter want to misrepresent the facts? Yet that's what happened. In two particular stories that I was involved in, they changed all the details. And when you look at different channels, there was 3 different TV channels that reported one story, and there was 2 different newspapers that reported the same story, and the same detail was messed up in all of them. So 5 different accounts, different data. You know, and that's amazing how they get this wrong when they don't have a reason to. When it would have been easier to get the information correct the first time and have everybody report the same thing.
So let me
But
just
now when you get
interject.
into
Is it
let's
a okay? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
when you get into look back 2,000 years ago, well, we don't have any kind of any time any criteria for or minimum level of competency for reporting. When all it is bias, when the whole purpose is to make people believe what you want them to believe, when it's all literally propaganda and that's it. Well, and everything is exaggerated. We got four Gospels of Jesus, two of which are basically the same story. I mean, we have Matthew and Mark, essentially the same thing. Luke might have been written by Luke, supposedly, but not that Luke. So Luke seems to have been anachronistic. He's out of time because Josephus Bar Matthias, who is also Joseph of Arimathea, both one and the same person, at least according to Robert Price. They're the same character. And if you read Luke and you compare that to Josephus, they're both writing about the same account from two different perspectives. And then John is complete fabrication. John has no purpose other than to be propaganda. So completely made up to take advantage of a prior story. And then we have 16 other Gospels that never made it in there at all. And the weird thing is that the 16 other Gospels that never made it into the Bible are much like the myriad accounts of Lord Krishna that you can find in Hinduism. Krishna had a lot of adventures, way more than Jesus. Krishna did a lot more shit than Jesus ever did. And even if we included those other 16 Gospels, we still wouldn't have Jesus doing as much stuff as Krishna did. But we have Jesus in the 16 other Gospels that never made it in. We have Jesus doing things that contradict the concept of Jesus, like one where he murders a child, for example. And there was another one in the Gospel of Thomas where the only element of wisdom that I've ever gotten out of Jesus at all, and it didn't even make it into the Gospels. Somebody asked Jesus what he thought about circumcision, which of course is a ubiquitous Jewish tradition. And Jesus said, if God meant for us to have no foreskins, then we would be born with no foreskins. Brilliant.
Right. Right.
So I don't think that there can't have been just one Jesus, because I've had Christians tell me that they refer to James, who was the brother of Jesus the Anointed, right? They say, well, that's proof that our Jesus existed, except, well, no, that's a reference to James of Damnius, or excuse me, Jesus of Damnius. And then there's another reference to Jesus ben Ananias, and they say, well, that's our Jesus. No, that's a completely different guy. And we're talking about people who lived at different times. And Josephus talked about 19 people named Jesus. Well, technically, Yeshua, which is also can be Jesus, or it can be Joseph, or Joshua. So who knows?
Can I attack Paul for a second?
Sure.
I mean,
please.
if I met Jesus, or if I met the people who knew Jesus, and I were telling people back in Paul's day that I did so, wouldn't I be doing that to impress my friends and try to start my own thing? I mean, isn't that motivation enough to question whether or not he's got legitimate reasons to write what he wrote?
Paul by himself alone is reason enough to question Christianity. Look at what Paul advocates. Paul advocates believing your dreams as if your dreams are messages about reality. I had a dream last night about a friend of mine becoming a believer, and there's this huge controversy where he becomes my enemy now. And if the guy who I'm talking about knew that he was in the stream this way, I'm sure he would laugh a great deal. I have a dream about a person, and just it's somebody from my memory, from my common knowledge, becomes this character that has absolutely no connection to reality at all. Have you ever had somebody tell you that they had a dream about you, and then they tell you that you did something that you would absolutely never do under any
Oh,
circumstances?
sure.
Has that ever happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, well, this is what I have. I have a dream about a friend of mine where he plays a character in this dream where he would do none of these things. That's completely not him. So we know that dreams don't have a connection to reality. But back then,
But it's
people thought they
huge in
did.
Judaism. Dreams are gigantic in Judaism. I grew up Jewish, and I got to tell you, hey, you know, Jacob and they dreamed, and you had a dream, and then we dreamed about this, and I dreamed about that, and I had my dreams, and I wonder where they get it from, those Christians.
And that's where you get the 7-headed things with 11 eyes.
Right, right.
So I was leading somewhere at some point.
Well, because we're talking about
Okay.
Paul, and you said that Paul is not
because Paul isn't interested in reality at all. Paul is completely involved in mysticism, and he wants people to believe what they want to be true until it becomes true. And so he was going along with the Gnostics. The Gnostics also advocated that if you believe hard enough, then the power of your belief can affect reality. And that's kind of what Jesus was talking about too, that if you believe hard enough, then you can tell this mountain to jump into the sea, and it'll jump into the sea. You just gotta believe.
right.
So it's all madness, and that's it. So the character of Jesus, I think, if you had a TARDIS and you went back 2,000 years and you go hunting around for this Jesus character, you would not be able to find him, even if you spoke Aramaic. You wouldn't be able to find the one guy. You could find a guy for whom portions of the story may be applicable, but not all of it, because he's a conglomeration of different legends from different people. One of the things that people do in their traditions, like religious traditions, is where they'll take an already popular character and appropriate him. So they'll add a story where that character then advocates his importance and bestows it onto another person. In Islam, there was a popular story, not in the Quran, but in literature outside that, where there was a Zoroastrian, a Persian, who goes on a spiritual quest, and he wants to find the truth of God somehow out of Zoroastrianism. He goes and finds Jesus, because the Islamic version of Jesus never died. Jesus was never crucified. Jesus still lives.
Huh.
He's just out in seclusion somewhere. Jesus is an old hermit who goes out and heals people because he has this ability. So this Zoroastrian guy, and this is like 700 years ago, this Zoroastrian guy goes out and finds Jesus. He finds where Jesus' house, where he goes out and heals people every day. And he wants to know the truth of God. And Jesus says, well, I'm not the final prophet. You'll have to go talk to Muhammad. So you see how Islam has appropriated Jesus to then bestow the importance onto their prophet, right? Like Jesus is telling people to go to Muhammad.
Yes.
Much the same thing happened with Christianity when you had John the Baptist, who was a very popular character that people revered. And so you have the story where John the Baptist now baptizes Jesus and bestows his importance upon Jesus.
Sure.
So that if you followed me, you must now follow him.
Right. That's the importance of a kingmaker.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
popular.
So Jesus was, we know that from the legends of all the miracles that he's supposed to have performed and all that he's a conglomeration of a whole bunch of different characters, mostly Greek, like Prometheus and Dionysus, and a handful of others. I mean, there's all these other legends that are definitely older than Jesus, yet perilously similar. And you would think that either Dionysus really could turn water into wine just like Jesus did, or Jesus couldn't really do it either. It is the only, those are your logical choices. Why would God make his son, supposedly, into a sequel of already popular pagan legends? And that's all Jesus is. And you have one of the early church fathers, what was his name? Yeah, I can't remember his name. But one of the early church fathers was talking about how Jesus was no different than the gods you currently esteem to be the sons of Jupiter, like Hercules, for example. That Jesus had the same trials and challenges as Hercules. Now, we don't have any of these old books anymore. We don't know what he's talking about when he talks about, Jesus has these same adventures that Hercules had. Those books didn't survive, so we've no idea. But if you go back to the 2nd century, then we would be able to find books that would detail these adventures of Jesus that we no longer have in our library anymore.
Right.
So we know that a lot of this was just made up. It's a conglomeration of different legends, and then the person Jesus himself was apparently also made out of a conglomeration of other people. Is it Jesus of Damnius? Is it Jesus Ben Ananias? And then there was another guy. Josephus talked about 3 people that he found on a cross, and he went to go to Titus and have his 3 friends taken down off crosses. And that seems to be exactly what Luke is talking about, where Jesus and 2 thieves are up on the crosses, and then Josephus is complaining that one of his 2 of them survived and one of them died, and he doesn't name it, but it's like the 20th Jesus that he's talking about there is the one who died on the cross where the other ones didn't. And I can just see how these stories are embellished, mildly exaggerated, integrated. So we have bunches of different stories, like the Gospel according to Daniel, for example. That's the one where Jesus kills a kid. And some of these are really freaking bizarre. So you have a concurrent with the Gospel of John, you have the Coptic Gospels, which are fucking weird. And kind of beautiful in the same way. They're almost impossible to read in an English translation because they're so strange. But a handful of goddesses create Jehovah, the ultimate God of Abraham. And they create him out of a revitalized abortion.
Oh, whoa.
He's an abortion that was brought back to life. And he wakes up in a void because the goddesses that created him back away into the shadows so that he wakes up alone. And in his ultimate arrogance, because he is alone, he assumes he created himself.
It's
How
just,
twisted and bizarre is that?
It doesn't get any more bizarre. And Arn, what's crazy is we could keep going on this, and I would let you go on forever. I don't know how much time you have, because I could listen to this forever. This is fantastic because I don't know any of the information that you have so readily available, but I've got so many more questions on so many more topics for you. So can we move on? Okay.
Take it over. It's your show. I'm sorry to have derailed it.
Brother, you haven't derailed anything. This was amazing. I was telling everybody how you have this unbelievable mind where you have the storage capacity for all this information. You can recall it at any moment, and that you use that. I used to think that, I know that often that when you're doing a video, you're reading something. You've probably got, something that you're reading when you're doing your stuff sometimes.
I have to script. I have to script my videos because when you've got 250,000 subscribers, that means that you're going to have tens of thousands of people critiquing every word. Every word has to be right. Now, interestingly, if you're an evangelist, you can get up and speak to your tens of thousands of subscribers, and if you say anything right, you will lose patronage.
Right.
You have to lie about everything. But if I say anything wrong, it will visit me for years. And that always happens. I mean, almost every video that I come up with has something wrong in it. The last video I just uploaded, I referred to Wilson as a soccer ball instead of a volleyball.
Oh my God, that's right. That is so fucking funny. I just saw that, and that didn't occur to me. And people called you on that? And how many people called you on that?
More than a dozen comments.
It's hilarious.
More than a dozen.
Hilarious. I would have never even thought of that.
How could I get that?
Man, people are just waiting for you to say something wrong if they caught that. It's just you are being watched.
It's funny, when I wrote the script, I didn't refer to the picture. I was just referring to my memory, right? So I'm thinking soccer ball. And then when I went to go, and now I'm editing the video together, I go to get a picture of it, and I realized that's not a soccer ball.
It's a volleyball.
Fuck, I've already recorded the audio for this. And I'm not going to record an hour. I'm not going to set up my green screen and my lights and everything and start there's a whole lot of bother that has to go with us kind of recording. I'm not going to do all of that again because I said soccer ball instead of volleyball.
Right. That's so funny.
People are unforgiving. Unforgiving. If you're on the side of science, you've got nothing but enemies. Oh, and in history, whoa. If you think scientists are assholes when you get something wrong, talk about historians. So if you ever comment about history,
aren't you a historian?
You better be No.
Why?
And I know a handful of people who are credited as historians who throw up their hand. No. I am not a professional historian, because they're very careful about that. Because historians, even though they're not as hard as science, I mean, because there's more discrepancies in history than there are with science, but there's also different rules with history than there is with science. Don't ever get anything wrong in history. If you say something about history, make sure
it's like a master grower in cannabis. I gotcha. I know. I'm not a master grower. I gotcha. Listen, hey man, if you're an armchair at the armchair level, then it's good enough for me, because if someone who can recall history like you do, to me as a historian, and to most of my audience would be as well, and I find that to be an amazing talent. Let me move on from here, if it's okay, Arn.
Sure.
When I'm watching you on YouTube, you get these commercials, and they will interrupt you at the worst possible fucking time. During when you're talking, you'll be making a point, and I'll be following, and it'll be like a 3-step point, and you'll be like right halfway through the second point, and a commercial comes on for some 5G device. It's gonna block it's gonna block the radiation from 5G on your video. A commercial on your video. And I'm like, this is such a slap in the face to Arn to run this garbage.
I contacted YouTube about that just yesterday, in fact.
Good, because this is the question I was going to say. I swear to fuck, I told my audience I was going to say that to you. I said, how does that make you feel about YouTube, and would you consider ending the advertisements on your channel, because it's just it's so distracting?
When I watch my own videos, I don't ever get an ad in the middle of my video, so I don't realize the impact.
Are you using AdBlocker Plus? You use AdBlocker Plus on your browser?
One person complained that in a 30-minute video that I recently uploaded, that there were 6 commercial interruptions.
Yes, there were. I see all 6 of them. I see them.
So I contacted YouTube. And I said, people are complaining that there's 6 interruptions in a 30-minute video. I said, that's inexcusable. That's excessive by any standard. And YouTube's answer to me, not kidding, YouTube's answer was to me was, no, there was only 1.
Wow, sounds like every single debate that you've ever had. Go on.
So how can YouTube be telling me that there's only 1 when I have a whole bunch of people that saying, no, there's a fuck ton?
It's like fact deniers.
Now I have to figure out, and I've been trying to figure out how to reset this. I've realized now that if you allow a video in the middle of your channel during play, and I was having problems with YouTube trying to demonetize all my shit. That's why I vowed to allow a video in play in the first place, because they were just cutting monetization on everything. Mm-hmm. So now if I allow what I think is going to be a video, that means that they're going to put in 6. Can you imagine how many interruptions that is in a 30-minute video?
It's a lot. It drives me crazy, because many times I'm in the shower and I have to go out of the shower. I got to dry my finger off so I can tap skip ad at the bottom of my little cell phone in the shower. It's crazy.
You're in much the same situation I am, because I'm on such such a constant information uptake that I know I still haven't gone to where I'm watching every video at 1.5 times speed.
No, I
But I
tried
know a
that.
lot of
It's
other
fun.
people.
Oh, that is so. It's great, man. It's such a. It's yeah. The cliff notes on a video, right? I love it.
I love being on the learning curve. And there was a time when I was doing a lot of speaking gigs, when all I had time to do, because I was still working a full-time job in corporate America, I was working for a corporation that was sucking up all my time. And the only time I had left over, because I was doing a lot of speaking gigs, I was at least doing one or maybe two a month, I had to write a presentation. And because everything goes up on YouTube after that, I couldn't be doing the same presentation a number of times. Like a lot of other people who don't have YouTube channels will just give the same presentation over and over again.
Sure.
I couldn't. So once it goes up on YouTube, that's done. I've got to do something else. And during this period, I wasn't learning anything. I was just pretending to be learned, and I didn't enjoy that at all. Well, now I'm back in school. I'm pursuing an anthropology degree. I should have kind of had it by now. If I was going for a Bachelor of Arts, I would have already had it. But it is a Bachelor of Science, and I'm one class away.
Oh wow!
From
Congratulations on
those
that,
letters.
brother. It's great.
Well, thank you very much.
So, let me
Yeah.
let me move you past that point. We're gonna get into it a little bit here, and then we're gonna get out of it. So let's just get back into it. Do you believe most Christians know they're repeating lies, and are they innocent?
Yes, they know they're repeating lies, and they don't care.
So they're not innocent.
As Paul himself explained, it's all about make-believe. It's about believing whatever you want to believe,
Right.
and believing in dreams as if that was real. It was like following emotion rather than fact. And they don't care. I've had people admit to me that they know that what they believe is not really true, but they're going to believe it anyway. Over and over again, I've gotten that admission.
In watching so many of your videos over the last few days, I've heard you say that multiple times. I know that's a very important point that you make everywhere you go.
For me, my purpose is that I want to understand the way things really are. I don't want to be fooled into believing something that's not even evidently or even possibly true. I want to improve my understanding. Now, how can you improve your understanding? You have to be able to tell that there are flaws in your current perspective. How do you identify the flaws? If you believe on faith, you can't identify a flaw. You have absolutely perfect knowledge divined to you by God. And it doesn't matter that your God told the guy down the street a completely different message that contradicts what he told you. How do people not realize this? How does God tell this other guy down the street something different than he told me? How is evolution true for one Christian but false for another? There's no rationality to this. This is make-believe. It's believe what you want to because it makes you feel good.
I was just going to say comfortable, man. I was just going to say the word comfortable.
This is why Christians are obsessed with
everyone wants to be comfy.
Worldview. The concept of a worldview. And if Christians will describe that as this is what gives you peace. You believe this, and so that makes you happy. I'm not obsessed with a worldview. I want to improve understanding. And so my worldview, if you want to call it that, is just that. The truth is what the facts are. The facts matter.
Beliefs inform actions.
Yeah, that's more Matt's quote than
mine. Is
it
really? Because you said it.
Yeah.
You said it.
Well, I did.
I know.
But he said it first, and I think he said it more.
Right.
So I would attribute that.
And I love it. It says it in 3 words. That's
so
why
is your audience primarily atheist?
I can't speak for them. You know, I'd like to think that they listen to me, that they believe me, that I've converted them over, because I went through a conversion myself when I was 11 years old. And I went ahead with my bar mitzvah, and I felt it was so hypocritical at 13. And then 14, I had an excuse to never go back to the synagogue again. High holidays, I was partying, man. I was my excuse as a child. I was like, I don't believe it, I'm not going. And my parents were cool. They were like, okay, you don't have to go if you don't believe. And it just when I know that you had a fall from grace, let's say, at 19. When I was, I'm gonna guess and say in my late 30s, I went to drug rehab, and I was in rehab. They locked me down. I was in for 9 months. So I was in a intensive rehab for 90 days, and then a halfway house, which was you could go to the grocery store. And when I was at that 90-day intensive, they took me out to the desert in Arizona, and they made me believe in God. They forced me into it, and I did for a little while. You know, I had this rock that I found in the desert. It was in the middle of the desert, and there was no way this rock could have just appeared in the desert all by itself, and it was my God rock. And I had that fall from grace as well. You know.
My God, rock. Okay.
All right. Next.
Yeah, you asked me.
Yeah.
You asked me early on about you said that you were advocating cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
and we should talk about that at some point. Especially since we've been at it, I think, for over an hour.
Yeah, it's been an hour exactly. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. So,
please. And let me just can I just tell my audience this? I could have kept this all to myself. He was gonna tell me the story, and I said, "Can we just let's do it in front of the audience, because I want everyone to hear this." So, there you go, brother.
Yeah. So, I am strongly in favor of decriminalization of marijuana. However, I'm from the generation that if your hair was over your ears, as mine pretty much always has been, then you were just decided, everybody just knew that you were a drug dealer, and I never, or a drug user, and I never was. I was never into drugs. I mean, when I was 15, I remember being in the company of a very attractive 15-year-old, and I tried marijuana with her, because of course I want to be cool for her. And what I was trying, unbeknownst to me, was not marijuana. Well, not entirely. Because marijuana isn't supposed to do this kind of thing to your head. I found myself being electrocuted. I mean, I had like this electric sensation pulsing through my body, and then suddenly everything became two-dimensional. I'm like, at the reality that I'm looking at is when you get out of the car in the drive-in movie and you walk right up to the screen, you look at the screen, and it's so ridiculously tall and just distorted. Though that's what my reality was. I was in such a daze, and I'm wandering through this school. It's not even a school I go to. It's just the school this other girl goes to. And so now I'm stoned, wandering around the school, not even knowing where that girl is anymore, because I'm completely fucked up. And I remember reaching for the door handle of a door to try to get out of this building, and I managed to grab the door handle because I thought that I was in an illusory world. And so I managed to grab the door handle, and I bragged about it. I got the door open, and I bragged to all these people that were outside that I managed to grab the door handle on the first try.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And I wandered off into the forest. This was in Seattle. I happened to be in Seattle for for whatever. I wasn't usually in Seattle, but that's where I was at this moment. And so I wandered out in the forest, and I'm completely being electrocuted. I'm just absolutely stoned out of my mind and hallucinating and having all kinds of problems. And so I lay down on the ground in the forest, and I saw a baby in a tree. And I could also see the diaper and the kicking feet and everything. It was on a tree branch, and then the baby pulled back, and so it had the head of Charles Manson. And shortly after that, the sky turned into peanut brittle, which was interesting. And then I got up and I realized I was in a creek with water flowing over me. And so I crawled out of this creek, and I've got slugs. I'm like picking slugs off my body, and I crawl out of this creek, and I get up, and I see this girl walking down the street, so I call her name, and she looks back at me, but she doesn't stop. She keeps going. And so I start going after her a little faster, and I call her name again, and she starts running from me. So I go a little faster, and I call her, and then it occurred to me that wasn't her name. I don't know who this girl is, so I'm chasing some stranger down the street.
Wow.
And then when I finally managed to find my way home, I remember sprawling out of bed, spread eagle, because you had to be spread eagle, because if you fold any of your joints, then there's electrical shocks that go through. So I had to spread eagle. And I was really into, because I was like 15, I was really into the Beatles at that time for whatever reason. And I remember listening to How Many Holes It Takes to Fill the Albert Hall.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'd Love to Turn You On. And my head turned into a light bulb that kept growing, probably because I was staring at a naked light bulb on the ceiling. And the effects from whatever this was lasted for days. And this completely fucked with me. You know, I remember this is the 1970s. I could not go to a party. I couldn't go to a midnight movie, because you can go to the midnight movies. When you open the doors to the midnight movies, the smoke rolls out from all the people smoking marijuana in the minute. So I had to be kind of reclusive, because it was causing me flashbacks. If I was around somebody that was smoking marijuana, that I would get really weird. And a couple of times it caused flashback where suddenly I'm high that way again, and just freaking my shit. And so consequently, I have not been interested in marijuana in my adult life. I had been stoned once, like when I was 19, or maybe once again when I was 22, and I went to a concert and just got around it too much, and then just like, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. So it hasn't been a comfortable experience for me at all.
So you did use it a second time at a concert. You said you used it a second time, and
well, I didn't use it. We didn't go to a concert.
It affected you.
From 1978 to 1982, we're talking about, you don't need to use marijuana. If you just go to a concert, you're stoned.
You have a very low tolerance for cannabis. That's interesting.
Tolerance.
You could just, if you inhaled it and you were having a bad time at a concert, you weren't drinking alcohol either of these times, were you?
Alcohol is a completely different kind of experience. I mean, I don't have to tell you that.
No, but you weren't using alcohol when you were using the cannabis simultaneously, were you?
Oh, no. Okay. I remember one time
just the cannabis.
In 1981, I think it was 81, I was, I think, 19. And I was, I got stoned with somebody. I think probably the last time I ever voluntarily did. Mm-hmm. And I remember that I was staring at everybody, and a dark outline draws around everyone, so that suddenly everybody becomes a cartoon character. And then I was staring at this person, and all of these lines draw around him. And then somebody else talks, and I go to look at that other person, and when I did, all the ink smeared.
That is, some people have an adverse reaction to cannabis. It's true. You're not the only person to have this happen. When I was growing up, one of my best buddies, his name's Bill, him and I used to build bongs together. He was fine. He was the biggest smoker out of all of us. And one day he smoked. He had a panic attack. It was just a panic attack. It wasn't like what you were experiencing, but it was uncomfortable, and he didn't like it. He tried it again, same thing. I think he may have tried it another time, same thing. He just stopped using it. And I completely understand there's people out there that when you smoke it, it just has a different effect on you.
I do remember being stoned again in 1982, because I was in a kind of a commune full of fucking hippies. And just like where everybody was named Chris. Weird things. Like the whole house was funny. It's weird because there was this guy who had two girlfriends at the same time, and they're all like living together. So he's like has nightly threesomes. But the funny thing is all of them were named Chris.
Oh man, yeah, it gets.
And they weren't the only Chris's. So the three Chris's are in one bedroom, and then you got another Chris in another bedroom, and another one Chris who's sleeping on the couch. And the phone would ring, and hey, is Chris home? Can you be a bit more specific?
It's a lot of Chris's.
But I got stoned with the Chris's, and we called it a commune. We called it the Chris commune because everybody was named Chris. And I remember walking along with the Chris's, and I'd be just terribly aware of my tongue. Just like you can feel your tongue against the roof of your mouth, and then if you swallow, it like consumes your entire body with a rush of warmth.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, yeah, how does that happen?
Wow.
So marijuana was never a pleasant experience for me. It was just always fucking weird. And I remember at that same time trying to drive home from the Chris's. And it's a funny thing, what alcohol does is completely different from what marijuana does. On alcohol, you're going 90 and you think you're going 60, but you're really going 90. And then when you're on marijuana, you're going 30.
Right.
And you think you're going 60.
Right. Or like in the Cheech and Chong movie, you're really parked.
So I'm driving along, and I'm in a suburban neighborhood, and I can see another car coming the other way. There's plenty of room. I just normally would just drive right past each other, but because of this, I'm going 30 miles. Practically, I don't even know if I'm going 30 because I remember I was driving without my foot on the accelerator. I'm just driving under the power of the idle, right? And then I see another car coming, so I have to pull over.
It's so funny.
Whereas on alcohol, I noticed this strange thing that whenever I would turn a corner, the tires would either squeal or that they would come off the ground.
Wow.
So that was me at 19.
So
obviously a terribly responsible kid.
So I've discovered this fantastic thing about cannabis, the oil, the THC oil itself, over 50 uses, and I made it into a pain oil. I got my little face on it, and it's only 3 ingredients. It's 98% coconut oil, 1% peppermint oil, and it's 1% activated THC oil that I get out of my when I'm smoking concentrate. I just take like 15 drops of this, I mix it with 15 drops of coconut oil, and I mix it back into that with like 7 or 8 drops of peppermint oil, and I get an ounce of this. It heals up psoriasis. It stops all internal pain, including breakthrough pain. It does so much. I've given this to hundreds of people. I've got people all over the internet, photographs. It kills viruses. It stops my I get athlete's foot between my toes and all that stuff. So my point is, I understand that you can't smoke it, but I want you to if you would allow me to send you a bottle of this and try it out.
I have no interest.
You wouldn't put it on your pain?
I have no interest in THC.
Now, I am telling you that it works. I'm here to tell you, I'm a fact guy, right? I'm here because I love you, because you are all facts. And I don't know, I'm going to just ask you a couple questions. Have you ever heard of Graham Elwood?
I don't think so.
Have you ever heard of Ron Placone?
I don't think so.
Huh, okay. These are they're stand-up comics, and they're on YouTube. They've got they do podcasting. Ron Placone is a guest, and so is Graham on the Jimmy Dore Show, which is an independent progressive. These are all independent progressives on YouTube.
Well, I've seen the Jimmy Dore Show a bunch of times.
Have you ever heard of Lee Camp?
Yes.
Okay.
And I actually liked him once upon a time until I realized who he was working for.
Russia?
Yeah.
But do you listen to what he talks about? I mean, if you told me right now that George Soros was funding Arn Ra, I'd still listen to you. I don't care. I don't care where your money comes from.
Estudiante Puruski.
I can always fact check for myself, and so can you, right?
Yeah, it's just it's sad that I started out as a Russian language student like 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the political environment was entirely different now. Uh, Putin is throwing everybody out of Russia that isn't a Russian citizen. Um, I was invited to go to Russia twice. I was determined that I was going to give my presentation in Russian while there. And now I have like no interest in learning language because Putin has just erected himself as the new czar. He was president for 2 terms, then he was prime minister, then he was president for 2 more terms. Now, as president, he has given more power to the prime minister because he's about to become prime minister again. The day that he personally rewrote the Russian Federation Constitution to allow himself all of this bullshit is the day that the entire Russian government resigned. Putin is an autocrat. Russia is no longer a federation. He's the new fucking czar. And why is this not even news in the United States? Isn't that disturbing?
And you don't watch Jimmy Dore, and you don't watch Graham Elwood, and you don't listen to... I mean, Lee Camp is amazing, man. He's amazing. You got to go back. But the reason
Camp is working for Russia,
right? And like I said, if you were getting your money from Adolf fucking Hitler, I'd still be your fan. Because
but Lee Camp is part of the propaganda.
Does he spout propaganda?
Yes.
Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't know. I just had him
he
on recently.
He appeals to the left.
Yes.
I'm on the left.
Yes.
Lee Camp appealed to me.
Yes.
Right? And so he's saying things that I agree with, and so it's leading me into his mindset because he says a number of things that I already agree with. But then I realize that I'm being manipulated to support a position that is actually being advocated indirectly by Putin.
What do you think?
I'm against Putin.
But what do you think Lee Camp is saying that Putin wants you to do?
They're controlling your thinking. So if Lee Camp, you have people who appeal to the right, and you have people who appeal to the left, and Russia employs both. Okay, so you have propaganda networks that are entirely funded by the Russian Federation to speak English to American audiences, to appeal to their sensibilities, to control them in a certain direction on what we're supposed to believe. Mm-hmm. And so they have different messages set up for the things that will only resonate with the right, and people that say things will only resonate with the right.
Okay, now this is where you're gonna just get your mind blown. Lee Camp fucking hates the left, and Lee Camp fucking hates the right. You got to tune in, and you'll see things have changed, especially over the last couple years, brother. I mean, we are everybody that is a progressive independent right now, and because the left is producing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as an alternative.
No. The left. No.
Go ahead.
The left wants nothing to do with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Okay.
But that's their choice. But that's their choice.
We wanted Bernie and AOC.
I know.
What we got are right wingers.
Yes.
Biden and Kamala are both on the right.
Yes. They are.
They're right wing.
And Lee Camp parrots what you just said. This is what he talks about. And if you just give him a chance, Arn, you know what, man? You're gonna be like, oh man, people grow, is what I'm trying to tell you, and people change. And he has grown, man. And if you check out Graham Elwood,
he can't grow. He's not independent.
There is a movie. I love this conversation, brother. This is fantastic. You are my hero. I can't even believe I'm even saying these words to you, but there's a movie. It's produced by Graham Elwood. It's called Earbuds. It's on YouTube. I think you can rent it for $4 or something like that. I bought it. It was $13 to purchase the video on YouTube. So I went and I bought it. It's the best freaking movie that it's changed my life, Arn, and I swear to you, it will change your life too if you watch it. And the reason why is because Graham does this movie. It's about podcasting and the effect that people like you have on your audience. And he gets really into it, man. He goes after a lot of different podcasters, follows them, and talks about how their lives intertwine with their audience members, and how the podcasting community is getting closer together and helping each other. And this is one of the things that I believe that I think will help inspire you further to do the things that you do. It certainly inspired me. I would love for you to check it out if you get a chance.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Arn, you don't have to do anything, man. I've got so many more questions for you. You trying to hop out of here? Because I've got so many more questions for you. Cool. All right, here.
All right, well, go ahead and hit me.
All right. Did anything in particular...
I need to finish something. Finish something.
Go ahead.
Why I advocate the decriminalization of marijuana.
Oh, great.
There's a whole lot of reasons.
Okay.
So it could be legal everywhere, and I would not be using, because I'm personally not interested in marijuana or any other drug either. I mean, I like my Imperial Stouts, which, by the way, I'm empty. But I like a good dark beer. And how bad is that? You know, otherwise my liquor of choice is Captain Mo.
I like Guinness.
Not like a drug, huh?
I like Guinness.
I like Guinness when I'm in Dublin.
Right.
Because it makes sense to like Guinness in Dublin. But anywhere else, Guinness is only 4.5. The beer I just had was 12.
Whoa. I gotcha.
So, yeah, and the stuff that I'm fortunate enough to where I live, there's a lot of local beers that are 12 to 15 ABV, and they're just a hell of a lot. The flavor is just a hell of a lot better. So anyway, the reason that I advocate decriminalization of marijuana, there's actually many reasons. One of them is that the reason that marijuana was criminalized in the first place was to disproportionately target blacks and Mexicans. That was the purpose, and this was admitted in a recording from like 1972 from one of the Nixon campaign. So I've heard the recording on this where they're talking about the reason why they set it up like this. And another reason is because we have the Mexican drug cartels. I've lived along the Mexican border for most of my life, and the Mexican border towns are fucking scary because of the drug cartels. But what would happen if the entirety of the United States had legalized and regulated marijuana production? How can you have a Mexican drug cartel anymore? If you want to pay extra for the really good stuff, or if you know in advance what is the barely affordable skunk, but you're buying it in the United States, and you know what the quality grades are because we have federal regulations on these things, and we're paying taxes on them. Every state that has legalized marijuana has seen huge boost in revenue, while simultaneously, at the same time, reducing the number of consumption, so that like teenagers are not interested in it if it's legal. Somehow it loses its appeal, and not just marijuana, but a lot of other drugs. So the consumption actually goes down. Now this may be a generational thing, because when I was a young man, everybody did drugs. And the few teenagers that I talk to anymore are just not interested in that. My own kids are not remotely interested in that. Funny thing, the difference in generations. But if you had, where you're getting revenue, and suddenly the taxes, the state becomes richer, and the illegal market just literally vanishes overnight. Because why would there be an illegal market when anybody can go down to a local drugstore and buy weed, just like you can buy Marlboros? That's the way to win the drug war is to lose, is to give up. And it helps for so many different things. It would help Mexico if the United States would if it would decriminalize marijuana, and not just for medical purposes, but for recreational purposes, and probably not just marijuana either. If we were to teach, I lost a dear friend of mine to marijuana, or to not marijuana, to heroin. if we were to decriminalize heroin or treat heroin addiction as a medical problem instead of a criminal problem, what an enormous fucking difference. My friend would still be alive and he'd be better. So we're doing the wrong thing because we're evil. We're doing the wrong thing because we're racist. What if we, just as an experiment, what if we did the right thing? Because we don't want to be dicks anymore.
Just as an experiment, let's try the right thing for a change. Man, can I get that T-shirt?
It's like,
jeez.
It's like with the current administration. Okay, we've let stupidity rule. We tried the Harvard, the valedictorian Harvard graduate, and we moved immediately from him to an absolute imbecile. And unfortunately, we're going to Biden from that. I would rather go to another, Harvard executive. I would rather go to somebody like Bernie, somebody like AOC, someone who is personally motivated for the benefit of the people. And I don't believe, and nobody should believe any fucking thing that they see on Fox News, where they can't say left without saying radical leftists, because it's all propaganda. Everybody's buying into fucking propaganda. Like, why don't you hear what the policy and the propositions really are, and what the motivation really is behind that, and not just bullshit lies like we always get from the right.
I agree with everything you just said, completely. And it's because I've been educated by Jimmy Dore so much, and Jimmy Dore gets some things wrong sometimes too. He's not always right about everything, but he's helped me a lot with, and because he's a comedian, and I have ADD, I have a hard time staying focused when someone's talking to me. And when someone's being humorous, it keeps my attention, And he's so funny.
Yeah, I have watched a bit of Jimmy Dore, and Kyle Kalinske, and I can't remember the other names of it.
I recommend Kyle, David Pakman,
yes,
Tim Black.
David Pakman show I do watch.
I even watch people on the right, Arn, just so I can be fair and hear what they're saying. I listen to H.A. Goodman.
A lot of Fox News.
Yeah, I watch some Fox
News.
It seeps in.
And I watch a lot of the Trinity Broadcast Network.
The what?
Trinity Broadcast. So we're talking about Christian television. And
how often do you sit down and watch that?
Yeah, I used to watch that just to piss myself off.
Just watch that before I go to a mosh pit.
Shut up, dog.
I listen to this on my car stereo before I go to a concert for a mosh pit.
Shut up!
That's a good. Is that the big? How many dogs do you have?
I have 3, but I only one problem dog.
The Sentry canine mammal.
Shut up.
Sentry canine mammal.
Falcor. I'm sorry. What?
Sentry canine mammal.
He detects motion or noise outside, and so he has to bark at it.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that somebody told me that he barks so much that he must have been abused by previous people, and he doesn't strike me as an abused dog.
It's protective.
He's hugely affectionate, loyal, always with me. Sleeps at my feet, usually under my desk or under my bed or whatever. He's always with me. Like, I come out of the bathroom and he's sleeping on by the bathroom door. I mean, he's completely attached and very loving.
How much does he weigh?
I don't see him as being. I'm sorry, what?
How big is he? How much does he weigh?
I only weighed him once, like right when we got him, he was 90 pounds.
Wow, yeah, he's big.
So he was probably heavier than that by now.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's got big
we've had
head.
him for about a year. Yeah, but he barks continuously. I mean, he's ruined every podcast I've ever done in the year that I've had him.
What is this in your hand? Is that a sword?
Oh, yeah, this was my birthday present.
Wow, it's beautiful.
It is. It's the nicest cutlass I've ever seen.
Wow. I saw a video on Twitter a couple days ago. Somebody pulled a machete out to go rob a guy, and the guy had a sword that looked like yours. and he was the clerk. He pulled out this sword. He chased the guy out of the store with it. It's beautiful. The giant sword.
I've had medieval weapons most of my life, Norse heritage. So I've always had like Viking swords and axes and stuff like that. And I remember once upon a time, we went to a medieval event. So it's one of those like big feast things where you all bring real steel and everything. And as we're going down the road, a car pulls up next to us, and some guy reaches out and he's got this knife and he's like showing off his knife, trying to threaten me.
Huh.
So I pulled out a Viking broadsword.
Whoa. That's the Crocodile Hunter, or not Crocodile Hunter. It was the Crocodile Dundee. Remember that? You call that a knife? That's no knife.
I had a 31-inch bladed broadsword. I pulled this huge broadsword out and I started chopping his fucking car.
Nice. Wow.
And of course, they fled away. But I mean, the fact that somebody pulls a 6-inch knife on me as if that was going to crush me. I mean, the dagger I was wearing at that point was 12 inches.
Okay, lightning round questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so did anything in particular inspire the Fu Manchu that you wear?
That I couldn't actually grow the type of mustache that Lemmy had.
Ah, but this is what. Okay, this is the next best thing then. Okay, I gotcha. So
yeah,
okay,
I just had fun with it, so I just stuck it out.
it looks good.
I shaved my beard and mustache once upon a time several years ago, and my wife actually told me that she found me unattractive.
Oh God, that hurts. Thanks, hon. I'll grow it back.
She's like, what happened to my orange?
Oh, wow.
She said I became like a regular person.
Nice.
And not interesting anymore.
Oh, she's so harsh, man. Maybe one of the most interesting people I follow. So funny.
All right, so we go back to Genghis Khan, and then you're happy, okay?
Good. But that wasn't the inspiration behind it, so it wasn't Genghis Khan. All right, just checking.
It was just an experiment. It was an experiment that I decided I liked.
So the purple beard, was purple your favorite color?
That, it wasn't supposed to be purple. It's supposed to be blue.
Blue. Okay, it was blue. My bad. That's right, it was blue. It wasn't purple, it was blue.
Yeah, and I could try purple. That wouldn't be bad. What ended up happening was my beard had a gray streak in it at one point, which was asymmetric, and I thought it was cool. I had like one gray stripe, not down the middle, but down one side. And I thought that was really, really great. However, more of the beard turned gray, and then one half of my mustache turned gray.
Oh,
one half.
That's rough.
That just looked weird.
Yeah.
And so I had to dye it, and I didn't want to dye it like in a kind of empty vanity. I didn't want to dye it like I'm fooling people that I'm younger than I am. So I decided I would dye it an unnatural color.
Okay.
I just decided that and Matt Dillahunty dyed his beard pink, and that actually looked pretty cool.
I've missed that. I might have to go back and see it because I don't think I've seen that one.
It was a long time ago, but he dyed his beard pink, and it looked cool. So I decided I would dye mine blue.
Okay.
Although purple is doable, I could do purple.
I think purple would look great. Okay.
I think I tried red, and red didn't really work.
We're gonna step out of that and back into this for a second. Why do people say that you can't prove something does not exist?
Because they're committing the fallacy of shifting the burden of proof. They don't understand the null hypothesis, which is that if you don't have evidence to back your claim, then it is not considered. It's not worthy of consideration. You have to show that there's at least a potential truth to what you're saying. And if you don't have any evidence at all, then saying, well, it's either evolution or it's God, let's expand it a little bit. It's either evolution or it's God or it's fucking pixies.
Right.
Or it's we all get to wish our own reality, or Twilight Zone, Rod Serling wrote everybody's individual script, and it's every other fantasy you could ever imagine. But why would we give equal credence to every ridiculous fantasy, no matter how no matter how absurd?
Mm-hmm.
Science is only concerned with what is supported by evidence. Whatever is not supported is not considered. Show me there's a there there. And then we'll add yours to the list of available options. But you have to show that it is an option first. You can imagine that we're all part of the Truman Show, if you want to, or that we're all part of the Matrix, and I know a lot of people who do believe that we're part of the Matrix. But just because you made up a ridiculous fantasy doesn't mean that it's real or deserves equal consideration.
Who is that? The British podcaster, he's comedian, super famous. His name has just slipped my mind. He thinks there's this human connection that we all share. We're all in this whole collective. I can't believe I forgot his name. He's a super funny guy. He was in movies and he's over-the-top comedian.
Are we talking about he's got long curly hair like yours?
Yes, ex-heroin addict, skinny, really good-looking guy. I just can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't remember his name
The
either.
audience,
I remember I really liked...
Audience will probably pop up.
I really liked him once upon a time because he did say some clever and witty things.
He still does.
But he also believes in a bunch of bullshit.
He believes in bullshit, and he does say he still has a lot to offer, you know? If you listen, he's going strong right now. I was hoping somebody in the audience was going to pull it out for me, but they didn't do it. Okay, but
yeah, I know who you're talking about though. He was very clever. He had a show in the UK, and I remember he hosted some extreme right wingers like the Westboro Baptist Church and a couple of white supremacists, and the way he handled them I thought was brilliant. But then he also says things that are not so brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, and that was one of the concepts right there. It's just there's so many people that subscribe to that. Well, I don't believe in God, but there's a higher power. I love that one. I love that one.
I'm not religious, so I'm just spiritual.
Oh, I love that one too. Here I'm in Northern California. We've got cults and we've got sex and we've got all kinds of stuff up here in the mountains, and you hear that everywhere. It's just such a common perception of. Oh, Russell Brand. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's funny that neither of us could remember the name.
But he's an intelligent guy. But it's just funny. It shows where people are at and what they're willing to accept without proof. Okay, let's move on. Have you ever had an opponent? Have you ever had a debate opponent admit that they lost a debate with you?
Yes.
How'd that go? And is that an often thing, or does that happen?
No. What usually happens is, like, if you get a poll from the audience, and it would be like way overwhelming. The way it's not every debate has a winner and loser, because some of them, if they're roughly equivalent, if you have like equal number of people saying that their guy won and equal numbers. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be necessarily equal.
Right.
You can have a slight majority, and it still isn't a win. I mean, if you have a large group of people that says that either side won, then I don't think either one won. It has to be decisive. Like when Bill Nye debated Ken Ham, and Christianity Today did a poll where 92% said that Bill Nye won that debate.
He won the debate.
That's Christians saying their guy lost.
Right.
At better than 90%. Now that's decisive. That's a win. So it's easy to. You can have a debate. Most debates, I think, don't have a clear winner and loser. The Kamala Harris and Vice President Pence.
Pence, yeah.
There was enough people. There's enough disparity that we can't call a clear winner there. And with Trump versus Biden, Trump lost. It's not necessarily that Biden won. Biden didn't have to do anything. Biden just needed to stand there and let Trump lose.
Which he did, yeah. Right.
Yeah. But I have had debates where it's like overwhelming, where you get like better than 90% response. Yeah, RN won this. And I've had a few of those. But there was one where my opponent said, yeah, I agree. We were debating on whether the mind was material. And it's a funny thing that it was a Hindu spiritualist that set me up with another, what he thought Hindu spiritualist, to debate me. And the whole point was because he wanted to show me that spirituality is a real thing, right. And I'm arguing for materialism. So he gets his champion, and his champion goes against me, and his champion admitted pretty early on that no, you're right, the mind is entirely material. Sure. And now the host was angry. He's arguing. The host / moderator is now arguing against his own guy as well as me.
Hilarious. Arn,
yeah, I thought so.
If we could take the human mind and transfer it to a hard drive and transfer that into another human being, would then that make the mind immaterial? I guess would be the immaterial is the wrong.
No, because you can do that with a hard drive now, and that's obviously material. But the reason that you can't do that with the human mind is because we were not designed. And if we were designed, that it would be possible to take your hard drive. You can take your hard drive out of your computer and just set it on the shelf.
Consciousness.
And leave it.
Right. You could just take someone's consciousness and transfer it. Well, I mean, let's just say, what if you could do a brain what if you could do a brain transplant?
You can't transplant. There's a different set of questions if you're talking about a brain transplant, because then you're talking about what if you take your hard drive with all of this original software on it and you put it in a new machine, but now the drivers don't match.
Right.
So that's a different set of questions. But you're talking about taking a physical brain and moving a physical brain into a different physical body.
Yes.
I don't know how to address that. I'm talking about actually in the entire physical form. You are your body. The reason that we can't record a mind onto a hard drive or transmit your mind into another body is because the way that your mind is constructed is through tens of thousands of synaptic connections per neuron, and there's no way. That's a physical connection that would have to exist in the other brain too. So even if we could record that information, which we can't because it's chemical, all of it, your entire brain is purely chemical. So there's nothing we could record. We can get transmissions, or we can show imagery out of your brain. We have electrical devices that can read the brain well enough that they can record images of the things you see. That can be done, which again shows that your brain is physical. But the reason we can't transmit it is because your brain is like, the closest thing to a computer analogy is if you ever tried discharging capacitors.
Sure.
You have certain issues going on with your computer, and it's not just enough that you shut it down, but that you shut it down and also unplug it and then hold down the power
button 10 times.
36.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are things like that. Well, what happens with a brain like that? You can restart a brain of a drowned person, for example, right? But because you still have that static charge, the capacitors. But once you've drained that, it's done. It's over. And you're not going to restart it, because it was never designed the way that religious people describe it.
Sure. With a soul or an angel, that the movie Ghost. It's a great one.
Yeah. All of that is such complete horseshit. And it's sad that our culture is absolutely permeated with this. I mean, look at horror movies, for example. And what is there? There are like 2 horror movies that are not completely dependent on the supernatural. I mean, everything else depends on things that don't even exist.
Sure, it's got to, right? I love it, but it's so when you're not thinking about it and you just want to be entertained, it's so easy to just kind of let yourself be fooled for that hour and a half that you're watching somebody listen to a radio and he's hearing transmissions from the 1930s from his father, you know?
Hey, I like the Lord of the Rings as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
You know, I can suspend, you know,
and you can get into it and enjoy fantasy, sure. It's
We're
enjoyable
talking
for
about
you.
literally a fantasy world, okay, wherein, you know, that we take these different premises that we don't live like, that we don't live under normally. Okay, I can accept that and think hypothetically. A lot of religious believers can't. That if you consider two options, if you have two hypotheses, let's compare them both. What supports this one? What supports this one? Is there anything? How would we disprove either one? But when a lot of religious believers think that if you're thinking hypothetically, then whatever your hypothesis is what you think to be true. But if you're comparing multiple hypotheses, you can't obviously think that all of them are true. But we're talking about people who can't think hypothetically. When you say, well, what if evolution is true? Well, then they don't have an option. Well, then nothing means anything. That's it? That's all you can come up with?
Right.
And it's a disturbing thing when religious believers tell me that if they can't live for absolutely forever, I got this message today, that if they can't live for absolutely forever, then you may as well just euthanize everybody, that there's no purpose in living. Well, whatever purpose, there was no purpose in living to begin with. But that was supposed to be up to you. It wasn't supposed to be imposed on you by someone else. You were not. You think that your purpose, the reason you exist, is so that you can wrap your lips around the colon of God for all eternity? Uh, that's not a purpose I'm interested in.
On
I want to
that
find my
note,
own purpose. Then
on that note right there, it's a perfect segue. Who is the worthiest opponent you ever debated, and did they win?
They never put me up against anybody good. Um, I've talked to a couple of complete fucktards, but
I mean, not saying that, okay, somebody can sit there and deny it and convince all of their friends that they beat you in a debate. Let's say you had to debate something that you weren't well versed on, and it's just maybe something, like, let's say I was going to ask you to debate me on this shirt that I'm wearing. It says no law regarding cannabis, and I was going to be like, hey man, I've got a bunch of reasons why there should be no law regarding cannabis, and I beat you in the debate. And was there ever that type of a thing where you got into a debate with someone that you just weren't, you weren't well versed on, that you can remember, and they really, like maybe a high school debate or something, even some
in high
subject?
school we were trained that we were supposed to be we were given topics, and then someone else would decide which side of that topic we were supposed to argue.
Oh yeah, it makes it challenging as hell.
So I mean, yeah, that was a much better training. So now I have to debate something I don't necessarily believe in,
Yes.
but I
That's
have to
great.
advocate for that anyway, just to see if I can win the debate.
That can really
And
help you with that, getting to talk to people. That is great with different opinions. It's great.
so I did one of those where I debated against a paleontologist, where I'm playing the part of a creationist. So I'm
Oh,
supposed to advocate creationism.
wow.
And I found that the way that I did this, and that the way that I won that debate too, was by getting a little drunk and just being a deliberately obtuse, ignorant fuck. So I interrupted constantly. I said ridiculous things.
You didn't
I
concede
parodied everything
points.
that she said.
Yeah, you didn't concede a
Yeah,
point. That's the thing. And you talk
because
over them.
you can win that debate easily just if you're ignorant enough.
And that's a good thing to
What?
be able to demonstrate for people, to show
Yeah.
people, that you can get bullied in a debate, and you could be on the right side. I mean, it could be the most obvious thing.
Yeah, look at the last two debates. You know, with Pence and Kamala, and with Trump and Biden.
Right.
In both cases, the GOP candidate is just lying out of their ass every second. Now, not everything that the Democrats said was right, but they might have said a couple of things that were misleading. But mostly, what they said is defensible, or nothing the GOP candidate says is correct at all. Nothing. So, but then that's why they requested in advance that there not be fact checkers, because they know We can't have this debate if people are going to call us out every time we lie.
That's one of the things I like about watching you debate is you can fact check people in real time. It's a nice talent.
You have to be very specialized in the subject.
Yes.
So
You've
that's
got a
hard one.
wide variety of specializations, my friend. You really do. How many different sciences disproved Noah's flood? How many different sciences was it?
Well, the video series that I did was talking about meteorology, dendrochronology, geology, paleontology, anthropology, zoology, and mythology.
7 different sciences.
Well, mythology is technically not a science, but still.
It still helps disprove it.
And when I said meteorology, I'm really talking about physics. So that was kind of a cheat there, just to keep everything in an ology.
Oh, I gotcha. You can't say physiology, huh? Because that's a human body.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Rogie. He's up, which is great. I'm just gonna make sure. I think he's just moving around a little bit. He just got up and scratching his ear. All right, the next question I've got for you is just along what you just said. Is there a technique you use for retaining information? Because you're like a human dictionary and encyclopedia rolled up into one.
No, sadly, my brother, one of my stepbrothers, was a mechanic, and he told me once upon a time that he forgot more about auto mechanics than I'll ever know, and I didn't understand the value of that statement until I grew up, and I realized as I read through some of the stuff that I wrote a decade ago, and I don't remember this information. And if I hadn't written it, I wouldn't remember it now. So, I mean, I have forgotten more about this than my opponents will ever know. And that I understand what that means.
Yes.
You don't retain everything, and you have to keep working at it. So it's kind of embarrassing how much I've forgotten, as you do.
Yes.
And you just got to keep on top of it.
Yes, you do. I went back and I watched one of my old podcasts from 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was listening to myself speak in the exact same thing. I had no idea what I was talking about. I was like, what is this about? I don't even understand what I mean. It's like, I mean, I was obviously knew what I was talking about back then, but I didn't remember any of it. It didn't make sense to me. Okay, what is your pet peeve from a debate opponent?
Dishonesty.
Mm-hmm. Intentional dishonesty.
What they're saying, they know that what they're saying is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way you can get them to acknowledge what is correct, because it's not about truth. It's about the propaganda. It's about what you can make people believe. And so they're going to advocate a position whether it's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. That irritates the fuck out of me.
Yeah. What do you do when you encounter it?
With Kent Hovind, he's been spewing the same lies his entire life. He's too goddamn stupid
Will
to
you
be able to improve his game.
Will you familiarize my audience with who he is? And I don't even know who he is, actually.
He's every kind of fraud. He's been convicted of he was convicted unanimously on 51 counts of different types of fraud, and spent 9 years in prison.
Wow.
And he runs his ministry giving this spiel that he's been using since I think the 1970s. He's been using the same argument forever. And they're all wrong. Everything he says is wrong. But the thing is that he knows they're wrong. And it doesn't matter. He will still tell you that you evolutionists believe you came from a rock. No. Nobody believes we came from a rock. Literally nobody. And he knows that's a lie. But he continues to say that because it makes it sound ridiculous and it works for his audience.
Right.
He knows he's full of shit. So when we talk about birds coming from dinosaurs, he shows a picture of a hummingbird and a picture of a brontosaurus, or a plastic model of a brontosaurus, and so he'll compare. Oh yeah, these are definitely related. Oh, who could say that?
Arn Ra could say it.
But of course, we're not talking about birds evolving from sauropods, are we? We're talking about birds evolving from a branch of dinosaurs called Pyrabes, which are
I
a
see.
subset of Maniraptorans,
But they're
which
still
are
dinosaurs,
so,
right? Birds are dinosaurs, right?
well, birds are still dinosaurs.
Right.
But the thing is, the Pyrabes, if you look at this lineage of dinosaurs, there's like, you can't tell they're bird-like, and they're covered in feathers. Some of them have beaks. They all still have fingers. But I mean, it's like, and people argue, is this a bird? Is this a dinosaur? Well, if you can't tell, that's what makes it a transitional species,
Can I
isn't it?
just interrupt you, Arn? Right there.
What's that?
When I'm in my yard, I'm in Northern California. I've got lizards. I've got alligator lizards. I've got the blue fence swifts, and I've got little finch birds everywhere. Very often, in the corner of my eye, I will see either a bird or a lizard, and I will think it's a lizard because of the way it's moving, and it's a bird. Or I'll think it's a bird, and it turns out it's a freaking lizard, because they move similarly. There are things about lizards, even lizards today, and birds that just my eye catches, and I'm like, there's got to be something there, right?
No,
Nothing there.
I would have to say that I would have to say that when you're looking at a lizard is a lepidosaur. It's the furthest thing a reptile can be from a dinosaur. But we're
A
talking
lizard,
about, we're
really?
talking
It's
about
the
Pyrabes.
furthest. A lizard is the. It looks just like a little dinosaur. What are you talking about? It's like a miniature dinosaur, isn't it? Set me
We're
straight.
talking about dinosaurs that are fully feathered. So, I mean, imagine something like a T-Rex that has feathers. It walks like a bird. It makes noises like a bird. I mean, it has all of the same material structures. It has the furculum. It has but just like all of the skeletal features, it has all of the respiratory features. I mean, these are indistinguishable. How you can't tell if you want to divide things into it's either 100% bird or it's 100% dinosaur, when you get into the Maniraptorans, and more specifically when you get into the Pyrabes, it's impossible to draw that line because it is clearly both, but neither. If you have to divide it into one, it's either this or that. Then you get into this group, and it's both of these and neither one. So it completely destroys that hard category of it's either a dinosaur or it's a bird.
It's interesting.
So you get into something like a Caudipteryx zooey, for example. When that was first discovered, scientists studying it, experts studying it when it was first discovered, could not tell: is this a bird? Is this a dinosaur? We can't figure it out. So eventually they decided that it was a non-avian oviraptorid. But that took a while of study to figure that out. And so what they eventually figured is that how do you draw a line between a wolf and a dog? We understand that all of them are canids, right? How do you draw a line between a dinosaur and a bird? You understand that all birds are dinosaurs. Whether it's a bird or not is negotiable, but it's definitely a dinosaur. So all birds are dinosaurs. Every mallard duck is a dinosaur. Not like a dinosaur, it is a dinosaur.
Interesting.
Same goes for my parrot.
Good, right on cue. So, do you play chess, and do you debate like chess by roping your opponent into a corner and trapping them with their false observations?
I want to say that I do because a lot of the times the people that I debate do say incredibly stupid things. And so the opportunity opens up. I can't always plan for it, though. I mean, I can't do the moves ahead because they don't think like me. And I've never met a debate opponent yet that I could predict so well that I could just walk them into a thing and they'd go there. They always say things that come completely out of left field that have no connection to logic at all.
Or you're like,
but what they said
wow.
is so
Wow moments.
But what they said is so amazingly stupid that
Right.
it opens an opportunity for me. But I mean, when I talk to believers, really, they like everything they say is based on a completely false premise. You believe what you do because you think, or you base your morality. This was one I got yesterday. You base your morality on Darwinian theory. No, I don't. Well, evolutionists base their morality on Darwinian theory? No, they don't. Well, I've met people like that. No, you haven't. You're telling me that you met somebody you can't identify who bases their position on this, but you've already told me I base my position on that, and I don't. So I know that those other people don't either, because nobody does.
Right.
Because that's stupid.
Right.
But the guy I'm talking to is stupid, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So what do you do with that? So I have to give people too much credit, and then it doesn't help me at all, because I have to assume that they have at least a fucking clue.
Right. Right.
Usually, they don't.
No. You know, I would be trembling in my boots if I had to debate you. I've tried debating just 2 or 3 times, and I can't imagine what's going through someone's mind, especially when I've seen your old debates where you were on the street with preachers, you know, on the street, and those were some of my favorite videos from you, because you're a big guy and you can use your body and your size when you're talking to someone. I don't know if you're conscious of it or if it just kind of happens, but I've seen you lean in and I've seen people cower away. Is that something you're conscious of?
It's exactly that reason that I prefer to do debates on video.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have, what I really love is when somebody makes their case, and then I do where I take their first point and then I respond to it, and at their second point and I respond to that. I prefer to do that in an edited video, because I obviously can't intimidate them that way, so there's no way to cheat that way.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I don't want there to be a cheat.
Exactly.
And
you want to win it on the merits of of your points, and I understand that.
And when we arguing with somebody live, it's usually 2 people talking over each other.
Yes.
I used to like to go to London's Hyde Park. There's an area there called Speaker's Corner, which can be a really good time to go there and argue your position. But what ends up happening is you can't get any kind of good audio out of it. It's just everybody yelling over each other, and that's useless.
Sure.
So what I would rather do is have that person make their point, and then it's important to do this too. It's important if they say something you're unfamiliar with, look it up. If I say something that person's unfamiliar with, well then it has no value in the debate if they don't know what I'm talking about. But if it's in a recorded thing where they can look it up what I said and verify what and try to find a fault with it, and if they can't, which is usually the case, then they have to respond by trying to change the subject to something where they have a strength.
Sure.
So I think that's a much more honest way to do a debate. And again, the best way really is in writing, but a written debate, although academically accurate, it has no entertainment value. So
Sure.
Nobody pays attention.
I'm not even familiar with written debate.
Yeah, well, that's the way science does debates. So yeah, science does not ever put 2 scientists on stage in front of an audience to try to decide the truth about anything. Because in either case, the scientist could pull up something completely out of his ass that the other one's not prepared for or never heard of. And then what are you supposed to do? Just give the benefit of the doubt?
That's not how
Science
scientists
does not
work.
do that.
It's got to be factually
Yeah, science
based.
does not ever give the benefit of the doubt.
Certainly.
So if you have a written debate, I present my case in writing, you look up everything I said, research everything I said, and then you post your response. Now, in a live debate, if I say all this bullshit and you don't know what the fuck I'm even talking about, and this has happened a lot with creationists. I've had one debate with a creationist where he listed 7 scientific studies that he said supported his position on creationism that said these specific things. Now, in a live debate, I can only say that I've never heard of any such study. That doesn't make any damn sense. But how else can you critique it?
Can't.
But then I managed to get that same guy to agree to a written debate after the live one. And then in the written debate, now I have a chance. When he brings up that study, I can look it up. I can read the study myself and say, hey, none of your 7 studies said any of the bullshit you said they did. Here's what they actually said. And it's completely opposite of what you just said. And then what's his defense? He doesn't have one.
Right.
He has to change the subject and talk about something else. And then I have to go back, well, let's go back to having you admit that this study did not say this thing. Let's have you admit that first. No, I want to talk about this. See? So the truth is revealed in a written debate. That's why science goes with written debate, where you can research everything the other person says. In live debate, somebody one time waylaid me with, there was a debate on whether Christianity is dangerous. So I brought up a whole bunch of examples of how Christianity is dangerous. And then the guy just changed the whole goalpost by following me. First, he doesn't go ahead of me, he follows me, and he says, well, I'm only talking about intrinsic Christianity.
Oh, geez.
So completely ignore
Goalpost
the fact that Christianity is the bloodiest religion in all of history. Completely ignore all of the evil that Christianity has done throughout its history, and say, well, I'm only now restricting to intrinsic Christianity. Now, if I knew that he was only going to talk about intrinsic Christianity, then I would have brought studies that show that specifically only intrinsic Christianity are detrimental to the cognitive development of children, which it is. But I didn't know that it was going to be that he's going to only be arguing for a subcategory. Now, if this was a written debate, okay, fine. He brings up the surprise stuff, and now I get to look up what he says, find the truth of it, find out that there isn't the truth of it, find out what the truth is, and post that. So if you're interested in the truth, it would be a written debate. So that's how science does that. But people are looking for entertainment value. They want the live on-stage display.
So, what do you do for leisure?
I don't really have leisure. I mean,
I don't really have leisure. I never thought in a million years you would say that. I thought you'd say, hey man, I collect spores, molds, and fungi or something. At least something like.
No, honestly, what I do is what I do.
That's it's your life. What you do is wow. So you do it. That's what you do. I gotcha. It's what we see you doing is your leisure.
I get on my computer screen. I stay at my computer. I stay at my keyboard until I can't stay awake anymore. So I love when I have.
So let me just tell everybody, Arn Ra, patreon.com/Arn Ra, right? Right. Yes. So you guys, just so you all know, you want to support him. That's his Patreon. I don't want to wait till the very end. I want to say, while there's so many people here watching right now, you guys go over and support this guy because you hear what he's about, and there's so much more we haven't even touched on. You have no idea the levels and the layers. But I just wanted to stop everyone and just, hey, patreon.com/Arn Ra, ARONRA. Is it one word?
ARON is my first name, RA is my last name, but on the YouTube channel it is ARONRA.
On the Patreon.
And on Patreon it's ARONRA.
Okay, there you go, guys. Okay. Yeah. So this is your leisure.
We've been at this for like 2 hours.
No, we haven't. See, you have a misconception of time and space because I'm using cannabis. So, are you trying to get out of here?
My misconception is based on your drug use. That's an interesting notion. That's an interesting notion.
Because we're all connected, you see. We're just one big global connection.
Yeah, well, I am going to have to bail here shortly.
Okay,
so.
That's fair. That usually, I always ask my guests in the before I go live, how much time they have, and you and I were just so involved in conversation I forgot to ask you. So thank you for spending as much time as you have so far, and I would let you stay for 8 hours. I do 8-hour live streams, and I would love to have you for 8 hours, just so you know. I'm gonna skip that question. Do you only listen to speed metal?
No, I mean I don't have time to listen to music anymore. It's funny that there was so much of my life where I'm sitting around going, what am I going to do with myself? And watching the same stupid show on TV while sitting on the couch with everybody else who wants to wish that they had something to do. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to imagine that decades ago that was my life. Because I don't have time for anything anymore.
I understand.
Yeah, it's when I call old friends on the phone, it's because I'm on a road trip and I can't be at the computer, and so all I can do is drive. So that's the only time I can call. If I'm not driving, then I don't have time to call anybody because I'm on the computer, and I'm looking for a new project. I just uploaded a handful, You know, so I'm looking for a new project to do, and then once I have a new project to do, then I have to do all the research for that. Then I have to write the script for it. I have to find the illustrations, animations, whatever.
Yes.
Build my own animations, which I often do, and then record it and then edit it, which I love doing. I love doing edited videos. It's kind of like for me painting, but I mean that's like all I do.
Amazing
So
art.
yeah, I know other people who are into hunting, fishing, and football, but there's just no appeal there for me.
Just so everyone knows, Arn's got a Jeep, okay? He goes out, he gets out of the house, he does things. If you're just tuning in and you think that's all he does.
My wife will force me out of the house to go to a local microbrewery or something like that. So I mean, that does happen, yes.
Okay. Are atheists a rare find in Texas?
Yes.
Rare.
Though it's not as bad as it used to be.
So the
There's
community's growing?
One is
That's good.
I'm sorry, what?
The atheist community is growing?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things here. One is that we are very red, and everybody's very religious. I mean, it's just overwhelmingly religious in Texas to a scary degree. But the other problem is that a lot of people don't understand what an atheist is. You know, most of the people in the United States who are atheists don't realize that they're atheists. They think they're Methodist or that they're non-denominational, because they've been taught that an atheist is someone who knows there is no God, that the other lie that an atheist is only the people who deny the proposition that there is God, people who say there is no God, that's all an atheist can be, when in fact an atheist is anyone who is not convinced that an actual deity really exists. Because that's what a belief is. Belief is conviction. If you're not convinced, you don't believe. And all these agnostics who say that, well, I'm agnostic because I don't know if there's an atheist. Well, then, if you don't know, then that means you're not convinced, are you? Mm-hmm. That means you don't believe. And so there's a problem with labels. And the atheist label has been misrepresented deliberately, overwhelmingly, both by Christians and by some philosophers as well, even on the atheist side, misrepresent what atheism is to make it as restrictive as possible so that nobody ever identifies as atheist. So that while there may be only 3% of the American population to identify as atheist, other polls will reflect that up to a third of the country actually admit that they don't believe in God. And I've had over and over again, I've had people tell me this exact sentence: just because I don't believe in God doesn't mean I'm an atheist. Yes, it does!
Right.
That's just a frustrating thing for me that they don't know what the fuck the word means.
All right, I've got.
And there was a recent thing where people have brought up that atheism has recently changed the word. That it used to mean that people who deny the proposition, and now only means people who didn't believe. But actually, if you go back to the history of it, the very first time anybody ever identified by the atheist title, the beginning of atheism, right? It was always, the atheist always meant that they were godless, whether they believed in a god or whether they were God forsaken. They didn't have any gods.
Right.
So that started out as pejorative. So you were originally godless, regardless. But then when people started identifying by that term in the late 1600s and in the 1700s, the first couple of people who say, you know what, I am an atheist, both of them said, I am an atheist because I don't believe in any gods. And both of them distinguished atheism from the people who also deny gods. So that was not atheist to either of these guys. So one of them said that Matthias Knudsen said that I am an atheist because I don't believe in any gods, but I'm also a conscientarian, which means that I deny the existence of gods.
Oh,
and then the next guy, Baron Dahlbrock, in the 1700s, said, I am an atheist because I don't believe in any gods, and that children are atheists because they have no knowledge of gods. And he also distinguished the people who don't believe in gods, atheists, from the people who deny the God proposition. He was not an anti-theist. He didn't agree with denying the God proposition. He just took the non-belief stance, that's the defensible one, and rather than making a declaration, because it was the 1700s, how much can he really know? But we have an advantage of greater knowledge than Baron d'Albrock could have. And then in 1800s and late 1800s, Thomas Huxley decided to make up the word agnostic because they found all this evidence of evolution, and there was a number of his contemporaries that said, well, we found all this evidence of evolution that disproves the Bible, which means that disproves God. And not everybody is a biblical literalist. So you could still endorse evolution and accept God, and Thomas Huxley was aware of this, so he didn't like these atheists declaring that proof of evolution was disproof of God. So he, rather than counter them the way he should have, he made up a new word called agnostic.
Yes.
So that you don't know if there's a God.
Mm-hmm.
So what his word was, it meant already exactly the same thing that atheism did, but then he added to it, it's not only that you don't believe in God, but you don't believe there's not a God either. So it's like a double negative there.
So how far back does atheism go?
Well, it was like 1674.
Okay.
Is the first time somebody identified as an atheist. Now, people have been calling each other atheists since, I think, 560 BC.
Okay,
so it's been
because
quite a long time that it
was that as a culture?
Used as an insult.
Oh,
that word was used as an insult for a very long time.
I gotcha.
Before people adopted the label. Now, there are people who are very clearly atheists, even in antiquity, who said some beautifully atheist arguments, based on logic and everything. If God can prevent evil but doesn't, then because he can't, then why call him God? That's just one example of a very strong atheist argument by somebody who had never identified as an atheist, but clearly, nonetheless, did not believe in God. So there has to be some interpretation there, because sometimes if you use the word atheist, then that was a death sentence. And so even when Matthias Knudsen admitted to being atheist, it was still a death sentence then, depending on where you were in the world. And there are still, I think, 7 countries where if I get out of the airport, that I could be arrested and killed simply for not believing.
Wow.
For either blaspheming the Holy Ghost or for having criticized the Quran.
Ooh. Scary. And they'll even come into another country and hunt you down and kill you. They'll send.
That's why I don't get out of the airport in those countries.
So, okay, I've got two more questions for you. So, just so you know,
okay,
you're not going to be here much longer if you don't want to be, but we'll take you forever. Your last name, Ra, has to do with the sun, I believe.
Well, I was reading quite a lot before I got onto Usenet, and there was this huge parallels between the composite god. Amen was actually an air god, and then Ra was the sun god. And you combine these together, it was really Amen was the key thing, because he's the air, and everybody thinks that air is spirit. So they think that that's where spiritualism comes from. And so Amen Ra, that composite god name, was a parallel of the origin of Yehovah. So this is, they even had the same wife in the antiquity. There were some stories that I was reading at that time. There were people saying that that Asherat or Atharat, depending on which religious tradition you were referring to, was either the goddess or the wife of Amen, or it was the wife of the origin of Yehovah character. I'm trying to remember what the original character was. I think there was a Canaanite god that first began that name. And so if you reach back into antiquity, and I haven't been able to find these anymore. So we're talking about stuff that I was reading like earlier, the turn of the century, like Y2K, that I haven't been able to find since. So, and I didn't know then that I needed to write down what all my references were and all that. I didn't understand that much of the scientific methodology at that time woefully. But when I had to come up with a name for a handle for Usenet, I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I decided to call myself Aaron Ra because it sounded like Amen Ra. And because I wanted to give an homage to what I thought was the origin of Western monotheism. And I had no idea when I said that I would become kind of famous under that name, that I would become an author by that I would then running for public office under that name. And so it just kind of made sense to change my name. So that's legally my name now.
What year did you change your name?
But I think it was Y2K. It was either that or it was might have been 1998.
That's an interesting segue into the last question, which is how much time do we have on this planet? If we only have 10 to 20 years, does any of this really actually matter?
Well, I don't think humanity is going to go entirely extinct.
Let's hear it.
I don't think we're going to go like the passenger pigeon, where 100 years ago, every third or fourth bird in the world was a passenger pigeon. There were billions of passenger pigeons.
Blackened out the skies while humans were roaming the earth. They literally blackened the skies.
And so humans realized what easy prey this overabundance of pigeons were, and so they started eating the pigeons because it's free food. Can you imagine getting a chicken? I mean, just pointing your gun up and shooting. Like you point a shotgun into a tree and hit 2 birds with it on one shot. If you're using bird shot, you would hit 2 birds with 1 shot. So now you've got 2 chickens out of that. Imagine that kind of exploitation that people could do. So it went from the most abundant species of bird on the planet to absolutely extinct in a matter of, I think, 3 or 4 decades.
So you think because we're not being hunted, we're not going to go fully extinct?
Well, we're going to have some resourceful few. They're going to find their way to survive, but we're going to have, there's going to be wholesale.
Well, there's going to be cannibalism. It's going to be all that's left, and I mean, I envision Mad Max. No, nothing
the
growing.
reason I'm saying that, I'm not talking about necessarily violence against other people, though that will be a component of it. I mean, the biggest problem is that we have 8 billion people on the planet. You need to be very efficient in your food production and your energy production. And we are quite belligerently not. We're just not efficient at all. And so what's going to happen is that you're in more danger of when you trip when you're running than if you trip when you're walking. And we are running at full speed. And so that's going to cause a problem. Does that make sense? Do you understand the analogy there?
I study this stuff. I am listening. I watch this guy's name's Guy McPherson, Dr. Guy McPherson, and I've been talking to my audience about this kind of stuff for the last 4 years or so. So I know exactly what you're talking about. In fact, I don't know, the back of this shirt, it says 2178 on it. I did some math. One day I got on Google. I was just wondering about extinction rates. And after I did extinction rates, 2178 was the last living thing on the planet. Was 2178, couldn't live past it. It was human, the humans. We're not going to have any other species to eat, and then we're going to eat each other, I guess. But it's going to be
I don't think humans are going to be the last species.
No, they won't be. Oh, there's no way they'll be the last species. But
yeah, we're going to take down everything cool and interesting, and we will be survived by cockroaches.
Oh yes.
And scorpions.
Scorpion. That was just out of left field. Scorpions.
Cockroaches and scorpions are both kind of unique in that they're both very, very old.
Yes.
And they're both ridiculously resilient to extreme climate change. Mm. You can freeze a scorpion and thaw it out in a microwave. And it'll still survive.
Why do I get the feeling that you have actually done this experiment yourself?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. Okay. I just read that this has been done.
Okay.
So yeah, cockroaches and scorpions. And it's another sad thing about intelligent design is you think about, you want to believe, or we all want to believe that we're really special, that we're the reason that the universe exists. But if you realize the reality of how old the planet is and how many generations of prior species have existed before us, nobody was ever able to write about the beauty of the sunset, but just imagine how many beautiful sunsets had existed.
Mm-hmm.
That beings didn't even have the inner monologue to tell themselves how they appreciate. They looked at the sunset and said, you know what, that's really beautiful. They couldn't even say that to themselves.
Sure.
You know, in any language, because they don't have an inner monologue. They can't.
Hungry.
So that's
Food.
kind of sad. Right? If there was intelligent design, then you should have had an intelligence able to appreciate beauty and warmth and comfort when it existed, and all through history, and there just wasn't that.
Yeah.
All right, we're at 2.5, and I'm going to have to go.
Arn, thank you so much for your time. I and my audience, we all greatly appreciate it. And we will be by your channel, and we will be subscribing and checking you out on YouTube, Arn Raw. You guys, thank you, brother.
My pleasure.
Okay.
All right, I'm out.
Okay, take care.
Sir.
Bye-bye. Get me off here. Okay. Can I take my dog out for a quick walk? He's just staring at me. He's like, "You're gonna take me out and let me." Rogie, you gotta go pee. You gotta go pee outside, buddy. You go pee. All right, come on, come outside. Come on, buddy. Come on, let's go for a walk. I know. I kept you cooped up. Rogie, we gotta go out the back door, okay? Come on. Good boy. Good boy, Rogie. Good. Yeah. Rogan. Can't get him to go. He's refusing. He's absolutely refusing. I don't know why. It's being bad though. Being bad. You go for a walk. I just walked all over the house. I'm like, he must have peed somewhere, but he didn't. He's so funny. He just doesn't want to go. Man, during that interview, I spilled my cannabis all over the place. During that interview, I reached over, and it was early on, and I knocked my cannabis over, and look what happened. Look what happened, man. It went all over. Look at this. Oh, it went all over even over my amplifier. And and you guys know how OCD I am. You have no idea. I've just cleaned that table up. You have no idea how distracting that was for me to do an interview and have that sitting next to me and have OCD. I was trying to clean it up. I was like, I can't clean this up while he's talking. That's so rude. But my OCD was just fucking screaming at me to do it. You know? So, you liked the interview, hippie chick? I'm so glad that you were here for it. I know it was a long one, but, you know, he is such an interesting person, and he's got so much to say, and he's got so much to share. And I did make it through. I think I asked him every question that I had for him, but I didn't have time to go through y'all's questions, and I'm sorry about that. I really wanted to do that. I know that you guys were asking him a lot of questions, and they were good ones I saw coming up. But is that why you kept looking down? I looked down a couple times. Yeah, I was picking up buds and I was putting them aside. Yeah, I knocked my jack hair completely all over the place, man. It went on the floor. It was under my feet. I'm telling you, it was everywhere. Couple buds here, couple buds there. Couple buds on my keyboard. Look at even my keyboard. Look at this. My fucking keyboard, guys. My pants still on my pants. Keyboard, man. Damn, man. I'm telling you, this is one of the best interviews I feel like I've ever done because there were no technical glitches. His voice was matched up, I think, with him talking for the first time. We didn't get disconnected. And he answered the questions. He went so much further. He went so much further with my questions. I could have asked him just a couple questions and we could have just let him go. I had to cut him off a few times because I wanted to get to all the questions, you know? It's the only reason I cut him off was for time. I didn't know how much time he was going to give us. I forgot to ask him at the beginning of the interview. I forgot to say, hey, how much time you got for the interview? Dude, him and I just start talking, and I got to tell you, we immediately just fucking hit it off, man. He's so friendly, man. He's so nice, man. He's such a nice person. And when I had him, he showed up almost 10 minutes early. I was in the kitchen. I was cleaning my bong in the kitchen. I didn't think he was going to be there till like 1 minute before the show. I asked him to come 5 minutes. He showed up 10 minutes before. I don't know how long he was in that waiting room for, but I was looking away, cleaning the bong. I had it almost all together and shit, and I looked and I saw he was in the chat. I was like, oh my God. 10 minutes before we started, and I started 5 minutes late. So him and I talked for 15 minutes, basically. And we just chatted, man. It was so cool. I told him about the cannabis thing, and he started to say, yeah, what he told us about cannabis. Did you smoke at all? Yeah, I smoked during the interview. He doesn't. Yeah, I smoked during the interview, man. I smoked 3 times. I smoked 420, bottom of the hour. I smoked quarter of the hour. Don't you know my smoke schedule? Don't you know smoking schedule, you know? I think I'm ready for a splash of coffee. A splash of coffee. Thank you, Shelly. I'm so sorry I didn't address any of y'all's questions. I saw you guys talking to him. If he comes back, I realize he doesn't have time. I want him to go see that movie, Earbuds, from Graham Elwood so bad. It'll change his life like it changed mine. I know it will. He doesn't. I know he goes out there. I know he has people email him. I know he's in contact with his audience, and I understand that. I'm one of his audience members. He has no idea the power of what he's doing for people. He's helping so many people. And if he watched Earbuds, he'd have a better understanding of what he's really doing, man. Earbuds it's a podcaster's video, man. It's a podcaster's movie. It all comes together in that movie. Earbuds by Graham Elwood. And it's funny, he rolled his eyes when I was telling him about more. He doesn't believe me about the oil. Did you guys see? We've got all this evidence and data and people who use this, and I've got photographic evidence. He wasn't hearing none of it. I wanted to send him some for free. He wasn't having that. No, thank you. I don't want none of that THC, he said. Oh, no, thank you. He rolled his eyes. Oh, goodness. This is what I'm up against, people. This is what I'm up against. I swear to fuck, I think he thought I was a snake oil salesman there, man. I swear to fuck. I think he thought that when I was talking about, as soon as I said psoriasis, and it makes it go away, and he rolled his eyes, I said, he thinks I'm full of shit. I'm like, wow, man. He needs to understand that I'm a fan of his because he's all facts, and all I want to do is be around facts, right? And show you that, that you've been lied to. And when I tell you that the government's been lying to you about cannabis, and that it really does make psoriasis go away while you're using it, and it does. It might not heal it forever, but as long as you're putting that oil on, it doesn't come back. All full ears, completely dry, flaking. His full ear. Got some bud rot out on the plant number 5 and a little bit on plant number 6. So I clipped off as much as I could. You know, it's probably I don't know, man. I don't know how much bud I lost, but let me just turn this stuff around in here. I'm drying these buds out in my dryer. Yeah, they got bud rot shit. But the rest is okay. You know, there's a shit ton out there. I'm fine. I'm still gonna get a shit ton. But I lost, you know, I lost some weight for sure. You know, I may have lost a quarter pound or something. And to someone like me, that's the price of doing what I do out there. You know, it's you're basically making more than you need because you're expecting to lose some, right? You don't want to make just enough and then lose some and then not have enough, right? Well, I'd like it to, you know, be perfect, but it's not. It's really humid in there. The bud rot seems to be contained to just that one plant, that Jack Hare. But boy, oh boy, did it spread around, man. I mean, it was starting to go from the tops on down. It seemed like it was going from the tops down on a few, but you can see here, I'll show you right here. You see these buds? I didn't bring them out during the interview because Arn's not down with cannabis, so I didn't want to, you know, rub it in his face or anything. But I'll show you basically what's going on. This top right here had bud rot on the top, and you can see where I ripped right here. I literally ripped the top off that was infected. Now, what you do is when you have bud rot, you see that gray that's on that stalk right there? See that gray webbing? That's gray mold. Hopefully it'll focus here in a second. Okay, now right there on that stem, that's gray mold. You want to look for any more gray in there. If there's any more gray, those buds have to come off. You want to remove them. You could see where I had to pull it from. And luckily, as I look around on this bud, I don't see it. You want to basically, really where it's close together up here, this is where you really want to look near the top. See, this had a cola top on it, and it's been ripped off. And it was infected. I had plenty of pieces like this. Now this piece I don't count as losing. This is still good. This is not infected, and it's nice and heavy. So this will probably, right here, this is probably going to be, you know, a couple ounces maybe. When it's dry, maybe over an ounce. But now let's see this other one over here. Okay, now this one was infected. We might even still see some mold on here. You can see where I had to rip this entire section of bud off of this cola top. Now this was a giant, big, connular shape, and this entire section here has been removed. I'm going to show you as close as I can here, and we'll see if there's any bud rot left in there. There probably is. Little bit of gray webbing. It's really hard for me to see while I'm pulling it off because my fingers are getting super sticky, and I'm getting distracted by that while I'm doing it. You know, you're getting these trichomes all over. And you just look inside there and you just see if you see any more of that gray. It looks like spider webbing, really tight-knit spider webbing. Man, you see that in there and you're fucking done. You know, you just take them down. How did I like him calling it marijuana? I'm immune to that when other people are doing it because they don't watch my show. You know, I only expect people inside my show and in my live stream to understand that terminology, where it comes from, the history of it. And in this case, we know more about the history of the word marijuana than Arn Ra does, but that's fine. That's fine. You can feel smarter on something, you know, makes you feel good. So, yeah, there's no other bud rot on these two. So this, you know, I ripped the top off of. I didn't mean to take this bud off or that one, but they bent and they broke while I was up there working on the ladder. I was kind of in a. All right, John, you're blocked from my live stream. You're a fucking idiot. Yeah, you guys want to know why? You guys want to know why I just blocked John Combs? Because he just said that this is a fucking half ounce, right here, and he could suck my dick, bro. I'm holding this, and my arm is literally flexing from the fucking weight of it. Yeah, that's my bicep activating from the weight of this fucking thing. It's not a fucking ounce, you fucking, or a half ounce, you fucking idiot. Here, let's put it on a scale and just find out, because I like facts. How much you think? We'll find out right now. Here, give me something I can put up here. 0. 3.0, and that's with it touching the glass. 3 ounces. Wow. Huh. Half ounce, you little fucking bitch. So when this thing dries up, it'll be an ounce. It'll be a full ounce. Or a little bit more. It seems like the Jack Herer retains a little bit more weight than 1/3. It's just like, I would say it's 2/5. Maybe it does. This thing right now weighs 3 ounces. It'll lose all its water weight in 2 days. But we'll hang this thing back up. I've got some nice buds here we can look at close. I could show you some mold if you guys want to see. Press number 1 if you want to see gray mold, botrytis. Press number 1 if you want to see it under a microscope. I mean, we could do that. I really don't want to get the microscope out. And press number 2 if you want to see some fucking badass buds that I had to pull off. Yeah. Here, I'll just show you. I'm not going to get the microscope, but I'm going to show you guys the botrytis up close, okay? So you can see what it looks like. It's disgusting. Here's my kafefi. It's still hot. I love it. I don't want to forget that I got hot kafefi. Never forget you got hot kafefi. Okay, here's a little gray mold, all right? They call this stuff botrytis. I say botrytis. It's botrytis. And I'm going to show it to you here. You can see where I missed. I was supposed to pull it out and I missed it. Just wait for that to focus here. Okay, there's the gray mold, guys. You look at the difference between that green and that gray. That gray is a no good and must come off the bud. You don't want to smoke that. We don't know what that does to your lungs. You guys want to see some good bud, huh? Okay, I'm going to show you some after I show you this botrytis. But I want you guys to know what botrytis looks like. B-O-T-R-I-T-I-S, gray mold, or black gray mold, I think they call it. You see it in there, you got to pull that bud away, and you've got to yank that shit off. Here, let's see if I can show you how to do that. So, you're going to want to take this right here. There's your gray mold, right? You got to make sure you remove the bud from the plant, or it's going to spread. It's systemic. It goes through the stem. So here's a little bit of gray mold right there. See this? We're going to remove this section. It kind of disintegrates. If you get it late, it disintegrates in your fingers because the mold just eats it and destroys it. And then right here and here, and here. Dude, I was watching Arn Ra talk to a bunch of people, and he said authorita. I did not want to question their authorita. Everybody in the crowd laughed. It was so funny. He's so fucking funny. All right. And there's a little bit mine. If you look right in there. Right in there. See that gray inside that bud? Look at that. There you go. You can see it now. You got to get in there and get that out of there if you want to smoke this stuff. Now, I could squish this stuff, which I'll probably end up doing anyway. And I'm really not too worried about the mold coming out when I squish it. But this bud, believe it or not, with what I removed, is actually salvageable and smokable once it cures. You look at it from underneath, and it's all green now. We've got all of the dead stuff off, all the mold. And so it's very, very sticky. This is extremely sticky, and that's just some stem right there. This looks like we really got the shit off of it. And you could see it was all over the stem right here, man. This was all gray mold. The stem literally has gray mold on it right here. Look at that. Look at that right there. That's, if you can spot it on the stem, look, you'll see a bud like this, right? You'll see a bud like this, and you'll see just dead leaves coming out of one spot on the bud. Take those dead leaves and kind of move them aside and look and see if you see gray mold under there. That's your dead giveaway. You want to look for those dead leaves. I should have been paying more attention down there in my grow, and I wasn't. And I would have spotted this earlier. I would have prevented a lot of this from growing. I'm going to have to go down tonight and tomorrow, check the progress, and see if that plant is botrytis free. Because if it's not, I'm taking it down. I'm going to fucking hang the shit up. I'm not going to lose any more weight over this shit. You know, this stuff gets you high as fuck. I already know because I tried some from 2 weeks ago. And it gets you plenty high. So I don't have to worry about it, you know, not being, you know, finished. But, you know, to get it as stinky as possible, you let it go and you let it congeal out there on the plants. And in that congealing process, you end up getting some, you know, some high humidity and some rotting. And you got to be careful. So I'm going to tear this part off. This is infected. And put that over here with my infected bud. Right. But here, now let me show you some of this good bud, man. I'm gonna show you some of this pretty bud here, so you guys can see what I got going on. We'll get nice and close. All right, check this out. Now, where I don't have bud rot, I have that, and where I have this is on probably 15 freaking pounds out there. So I just have to go out there and be vigilant, you know, and work. And I'll have plenty of this because look, what you're looking at right now is just a small part of a big piece of bud. Look at that. It's a giant bud right there. I'm just showing you one tiny little piece of it. This whole thing is beautiful like that. Then over here, I've got all of this too. And then this one over here. This giant bud right here. And then the two that are hanging up behind me. And then I've got some buds on the table in there. And this is a good time when you're looking at it under a camera like this to see if you can spot any gray mold that might be growing in there. You know, look around and see if you see anything dead that looks rusty colored. Luckily, you know, these are just red hairs and a couple of dead leaves. There's no gray mold in there. So, yeah, this, this is a good looking bud right here. Let's have a gander at it. Isn't that beautiful? Look at all that sticky lemon oil in there, guys. It's all lemony and oily. Oh boy, I've got some of this that's already cured, guys. What do you say? We dig in, huh? Here, it's over here in this case right here. Things in the way. Okay. Some of that lemony Jack hair. Wait, no, I think I grabbed... I grabbed the Sweet Afghani Delicious. I think I grabbed the wrong one. Oh no! Wait, no, that's it. No, that's Jack hair, huh? Here, let me grab a bud off of here. I'm not smelling it. Let me make sure. I think I'll be able to tell when I break it open. Oh yeah. You know, it doesn't have that smell because the fucking Sweet Afghani Delicious sucked all the lemon smell out of it. Oh yeah. It's there. Once you tear it open, man. Oh, it's gonna taste so good. It's fresh bud. I'm gonna put it right on top of this other bowl I was smoking. No Lowry Garden Cannabis. Cannabisism tis for all. Shouts out to Arn Raw for doing the interview today. What an incredible interview it was. I'm just so happy, and I'm so glad that you guys showed up to see it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go check out Arn Raw. Go to his YouTube channel, ARON space RA on YouTube. Subscribe to him and watch him, and let him know that I sent you over there, because I'd love to have him back. Do another interview with him. All right. Cheers, guys. Cyber style. No Lowry Garden Cannabis. Cannabis isn't just for all. That was incredibly smooth. I was expecting it to be harsh. I unplugged my phone. My phone rang during that interview. What is that? A's Garden. Huh? Oh, I still got the Zoom chat open. Yeah, Let's kill that and see how much processor it's taking. So much. If I do that, does it do anything if I like move across the screen? Not really. Okay. First Zoom meeting. What? First Zoom meeting? Here. You could see through my bong. You guys notice that? You can see the down stem. I cleaned the hell out of it today, man. I wanted it to be pretty because I was smoking with Arn Raw. I was like, I'm smoking with Arn Raw, man. I'm smoking with Arn motherfucking Raw up in the motherfucking house. What? Oh my god. Fucking ready for Jimmy Dore now. Fuck yeah, I'm ready for Jimmy Dore. Dude, would you guys be... I'm going to get H.A. Goodman on here. He said after the election in November, he's a right-wing, Trump-supporting podcaster. He's a great guy, though. He has a different opinion than us, a lot of us. Not all of us. Some of you guys would probably totally agree with him. But I would like it if you guys would want... to hear opposing views. It'll be interesting, you get to know these people and find out that they're human beings, and we'll find these places where we have stuff in common. Those stories that Arn Raw told about using cannabis, I wonder if he's ever talked about that on the internet before, man. I wonder if he's ever mentioned that before. I don't know. That could be exclusive shit, and I'm telling you, it's amazing when I hear stories like that from people, man. I love hearing that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sorry that it doesn't agree with him like it does for most of us, but hey, man, there's times when I smoke cannabis where I'm like, whoa, what did I do here? I actually got really high when I was talking to Arn Raw during this interview. After that third bong rip of Jack, I had to go back and go, was that Jack Harrer? Dude, I am so fucking high right now. I'm trying to pay attention to Arn. And I'm noticing that I'm having, dropouts in my attention span. And I'm like, man, I need to pay attention because, as soon as he stops talking, I need to know what he just said. And he could stop talking at any second. I have to pay attention to every word. Dude, it's work for me. You guys have no idea how much I have to struggle to try to make that all happen. Pay attention, man, but I do it, and I'm so glad that I do because I really enjoy doing it. This is going to be a beautiful bud. Can you believe this came off of bud rotted stalks, man? God. You just have to look at it, man. You can't just cut the whole thing off and throw it away, because some of it is still usable. And the earlier, the better. You always want to get that out there as quick as you can, The earlier you can get out there. Be prepared. I asked Arn, hey man, I told you I was a cannabis-based channel, and I use cannabis on every show and in every interview, and I told him, I said, I do that to show that people are okay with cannabis. You know, I want to show people that you're okay with it and stuff. He goes, I'm not okay with it. He goes, but I don't mind if you do it. He said, let me tell you, when I was 15 years old, I go, wait, stop right there. I'm so glad, man, that he just told it fresh, so we both heard it for the first time on the interview, you know? God, what a story, man. That story was insane. Dude, and he remembers all of it. I love that he remembers so much of that trip. I mean, he had a trip, man. He took a fucking trip, you know? He tripped out. His brain did not agree with the he said, it's not cannabis. And I was thinking to myself, you know, he said it affected him for several days after the fact. And I'm like, I don't know what drug could do that. You know, unless he had smoked this insane amount of LSD. Like maybe she had liquid LSD on her cannabis, but who does that? You know, did you guys have any thoughts on that? Because this was way before they had synthetics. I was thinking angel dust, which I know nothing about. You see the things I'm clipping off right now, these leaves, they're covered with trichomes. I used to save them and make concentrate out of them. But the thing is, yes, you'll make concentrate out of it. It won't be a high quality. You'll still have dabbable stuff, but it won't be the high quality stuff that you want. The higher quality the bud that you concentrate, the higher quality the concentrate that comes out. You don't want to believe that because it's all oil, but I'm telling you, it's true. You will get a higher quality concentrate if you use a higher quality flower, or part of the flower that's a higher quality. My dog didn't want to go out and pee, man. I took him out on the leash, you know, just he wouldn't do it. It's like he's saving it. God, you're saving your pee, aren't you? You're saving your pee till we're down in the yard. You want to get all territorial with your pee all of a sudden. He lifted his leg for the first time in a long time today. I mean, it's like a new thing. I hope he keeps doing it. He did that this morning. Lifted his leg the whole time. It's like, you look at you lifting your leg and peeing. All growed up. Little Rogie all growed up. You guys, look at this bud. Look at how big this bud is. Compared to my hand. Compared to a regular size lighter. Imagine what these trikes are going to look like. Now we can get all close and personal. Look at how wet. It looks wet, doesn't it? Because of the glistening trichomes. Nays Garden, naysgarden.com. Learn how to grow like a pro. Pretend you're a master grower. Come to Nays Garden. You can grow outdoor buds that look that good. Yes, you can. You can all do it. You could have this. All of you could have this. We could have it all. Oh, my chair's dropping down. Dropping down. Rise up, rise up. Rise up above. Let me see if I can get all of this cannabis out of my keyboard. I've got cannabis in my teeth. It's raining cannabis. Hallelujah. It's raining cannabis. Hallelujah. There we go. I'm not OCD. I'm not OCD. Not gonna do it. Right on, Evan. It'll get better, buddy. Remember, I use the sunshine, bro. It's gonna produce a lot of activity because of that sunshine. Wow. You can see my trim job's pretty good, huh? You get the rest of those leaves out of there, it'll look even better. You see, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 leaves that could be cut out of there. And then those leaves block the vision of the other trikes. You get those leaves out of there, and it'd be even more shocking looking. But I should have my glasses on while I'm doing it because you'll end up cutting buds if you're not really looking closely at what you're doing. But for what I could do, that's a beautiful. Let's see how close we can get in here and still focus. Let's turn. Wow. Frosted. Yeah, so I turned off the grow halfway through the interview because it was really causing some issues on my computer. And once I turned it off, everything was smooth. My computer, man, processor, it's just fucking bullshit, dude. I can't handle this. Fucking processor CPU can only handle so much. I'm like, I just know if I got a new CPU, if I got an i9 in this machine, I know all this software would say the exact same shit. I just know it. Oh, we can't. The processor can't handle it. 100%. Fucking because Windows 10 sucks my dick. Windows 10 sucks my dick. Press number 1 if you had fun with the Arn Ra interview. Arn Ra. Press number 1 if you had fun with the Arn Ra interview. Press number 1 if you had fun with the Arn Ra interview. Press number 1 if you had fun with the Arn Ra interview. Subscribe to Arn Ra on YouTube. Subscribe to Arn Ra on YouTube. Go do it. Don't be silly. Evan needs to get a gaming computer so he can edit media for Nays Garden. Justin Smith, hit number 1. Tricks 469. Free Julian Assange now. Hit number 1. Bubble Carroll, hit number 1. Hit chick free Julian Assange, hit number 1. Cat Stoops, hit number 1. Hit who else is gonna hit number 1? I like to see all those Julian Assange avatars. Look at all you making a statement about free speech in America. That's a big bud. See, everybody needs to see that's round. Might be the top of one of these. Oh, I could have cut this off the top. Probably just cut this off the top outside. I don't know where this came from. But in a couple days, this stuff's going to be so lemony and so sweet. The other stuff that's bud rotted, it's in there fucking heating up in my warming cabinet, and it's going to be ready to be pressed within like 12 hours. I'm going to take it all, and I'm going to put it all fucking in one thing and squish out the rosin out of it. So it's barely a loss at all. I wonder what this bud weighs wet. How much do you guys think this weighs? Grams. How many grams? It's got to be under an ounce, but you know, how many grams do you think this weighs? Wet. Let's find out. How many grams? 20 grams is one bud, even though there is mold. Even though there is mold, I'm gonna squish all the rosin out of it. Yes. Yes. Even though there is mold. Wow. Holy shit. Wow. Wow. One bud, but it's wet, so it's only going to weigh 1/3 of what that just said. See if anybody hits the numbers. Who's going to hit the lucky numbers? Who's going to hit the lucky numbers? Who's going to hit the lucky numbers today? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to hit the lucky numbers? Look at this bud. Take a guess. How many grams do you think it weighs wet? Take a guess. It's not going to weigh that tomorrow or the next day. It's going to lose 3/5 of its weight, because this is Jack Hare. This retains more than 1/3. Who's going to hit the lucky numbers? Who's going to hit the lucky numbers? Who's going to hit it? Who's going to hit? Iceman GLX, what's up, bro? Is that a reference to Token Daily GLX? Token GLX? Or is that a reference to a car that you drove too? Who's gonna hit the lucky numbers? How much does it weigh wet? How much does this weigh wet? How much does it weigh wet? How much does it weigh wet? Who's gonna guess the lucky numbers? Who's gonna guess them? Who's gonna guess it? Who's gonna guess the lucky numbers? How much does this bud weigh wet? 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 You love Paul? Is that where you got the GLX from? Bro, I'm trying to get Paul on here. Cat Stoops gets it? No, she doesn't get it. I'm sorry. Nope, you're wrong, Cat. My bad. My bad. What's the lucky numbers? Who's gonna hit the lucky numbers? We do not know. Who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get it? It's kind of wet. It's gonna lose weight, but right now, what's it weigh? Who's gonna hit the lucky numbers? Who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get the lucky numbers? Look how big around that is. Unreal, pal. Look how big around that butt is. Who's gonna get the lucky numbers? Who's gonna hit it? How many grams does this weigh? Somebody said 27, somebody said 19, somebody said 16, somebody said 26, somebody said 15, somebody said 12, somebody said 20. No, hey, Damon Faulkner gets it. 14 grams. Damon Faulkner, yes, 14 grams, my friend. Weighs half an ounce. This one bud, it's one bud, and it weighs half an ounce. Now, you can peel buds off of that stem, and you'll have little buds. But as of that bud right there, 14 grams wet, half an ounce. Patow, patow, patow. Iceman's like, I was close. Hey, I sent Token GLX an email. If you go on his live stream, would you guys ask him if he got the email from Nate's Garden to come out on the show? I'd love to get him on here next. He's so fucking great. but I never heard back from him. So here I can close this now. You know, I told Arn Raw, I said, I got a black Jeep after you did. I said, I loved your black Jeep so much. I said, I didn't go looking for it. Things just kind of come to me. My neighbor just like, hey, you want a Jeep? I'm like, let me go see it. And it was black like Arn Raw's. And I go, yep, I'll take it. Didn't look anything like a Jeep though, man. I'm making it into one though. Turning it into one. Got the lift, guys. I ordered the lift, 5.5-inch lift. I talked to the mechanic that's going to do the work for me. He understands there's a little bit of altering he has to do on my differential on the rear. The whole vehicle is going to be up 5.5 inches, and then I'm going to get rims and tires, 35s, and they're going to be crossover dirt street. It's going to be fucking black rims, and it's going to be bad as fuck. Did I get the windows? They haven't come yet, man. I was going to go after the show. I'm going to go down and check and see if they arrived. The mail place. Today's Friday, so they're still open. I'm going to go get in the Roxer. I'm going to get in the Roxer. I'm going to get in the Roxer and go for a ride. And I'm going to put Rogan in the Roxer. And Rogan and I are going to go for a ride in the Roxer. Rogan, you want to go for a ride in the Roxer? Outside? You want to go for a ride in the Roxer? Ride in the Roxer. Going for a ride in the Roxer with Rogan. Going for a ride in the Roxer. Roxer. Going for a ride in the Roxer with Rogan. Don't you worry about stuff when you're going for a ride in the Roxer with Rogan. Doc, you know what to do, brother. Share it around, man. Share this video around after it's uploaded. Share it right now. Once it's uploaded, go ahead and tweet it. Tweet it at Matt Dillahunty. Take the section where I ask Arn about Matt Dillahunty and just try to take a little bit of it. Try to grab just 2 minutes or less. Me and Arn Raw talking about Matt Dillahunty. And tweet that at Atheist Experience or tweet that at Matt Dillahunty. Find where me and Arn Raw are talking about earbuds. Right? Yeah, Pig Rat Gaming, exactly. Going for a ride in the Roxer. Oh, I love that little car avatar. Find the part where Arn Raw and I are talking about earbuds and tweet that to Graham Elwood. Find the part where Arn Raw and I are talking about Lee Camp and tweet it at Lee Camp. Make a 2-minute video and send it over to Lee Camp. You know, we talk about Jimmy Dore. Find the part where Arn Raw, who's got 250,000 followers on YouTube, talking about Jimmy Dore. And tweet that at Jimmy Dore and Miserable Lib on Twitter. You guys have your work cut out for you. When I come back from going for a ride in the Roxer with Rogan, I want the Twitter just to be lit up from you guys, okay? Impress me. Hit them all up, man. Hit up Ron Placone. Make sure to include him. Because I talk about Ron Placone in every episode, right? You can always find me talking about Ronnie and tweet that at him anytime you want. Make a little 2-minute video of me talking about Ronnie at the end of one of my videos. And say, you know, Nate does this at the end of every video because you talk about him at the beginning of every single one of yours. And he returns that favor. He doesn't forget. Nay's Garden. We don't forgive. We don't forget. We do forgive. We're very forgiving. But we don't forget. We remember you, and we wanna cherish the relationships we have with so many people out there. So you guys check out my friend Ron Placone on his .com. It's ronplacone.com. Ron Placone on YouTube. It's Get Your News On with Ron. The channel, though, on YouTube is called Ron Placone. So seek it out and make sure you hit subscribe and hit that bell avatar, that icon, so you get notified for every time he goes live. That goes for Graham Elwood and Lee Camp and Jimmy Dore and Tim Black and H.A. Goodman and, of course, Arn Raw. You know, Thunderfoot. Just Have a Think. And so many more that I like to discuss on here. Ron Placone has also got Ron Placone. It's comic strip. It's fantastic. It's LucyandRon.com. You guys all need to go to LucyandRon.com. Check out that comic strip. I've sent all of these guys copies of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And I'd like to send one to Arn Raw, you know, but I didn't ask him when I had him. But I can still ask him through email. Also. Ron Placone is on Twitter at Ron Placone. Ron Placone is on Instagram at Ron Placone. Ron Placone is on Facebook at Ron Placone. Seek him out. Find him. Let him know that you appreciate him furthering our cause. Let me tell you something. You know, when someone like Arn Raw wants... I'm looking for someone like Arn to come on the show. And I can say, hey, man, you've heard of Lee Camp? And he goes, yeah, actually. And I can say, I had him on the show a few weeks ago. Blah 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 blah, and which we did. I mentioned that on the show with Arn. It gives credibility to this show. And now, if I want to get Matt Dillahunty on here, I can say I did a 2.5-hour interview with Arn Raw, and Matt Dillahunty will say, okay, you know, maybe I'll do 15 minutes or a half hour with you. You know, we would be so lucky to have him. He's a, you know. Or, you know, set your standards higher. What about Michael Malice on here? Or some crazy motherfucker like Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro even. Which I tell you guys to follow now, right? Talk a lot of shit about them. I do. But I tell you guys to follow them. And I would have them on here. And you would find out that we would get along really well. And I would show them a lot of love and respect. Because they have their opinions and they're entitled to them, and they're very vocal about them, just like I'm vocal about mine, or Arn's vocal about his. But we share that common thread. We're podcasters, man. You know? Anyway, I'm going to take this doggy out for a ride in the Rockster. He's ready. You want to smell my bud? How's that bud smell? He backed away from it. Good boy, Rogan. Good boy. I love that he backed away from this cannabis. He totally took 4 steps back. He's like, ain't having buds, bro. Oh, let me put some triage oil in your ear then. How about that? Can I put some triage oil in your ear? It's so dry. Here. Can I put some triage oil in your ear? Can I put that in your ear? Is that okay? Is that okay if I do this? For the ride? I don't know if he's having a reaction to the triage oil, the peppermint, you know, it's possible. Because the whole ear is got this reaction going on. I love him so much. I love this dog. You guys, here's 20 seconds of me waving goodbye and thanking Arn Raw for doing this interview. Thank you, Arn Raw. You've always been an inspiration to me, and you are now an inspiration to my audience. And you guys go follow him if you want to support him financially. I am, and you can too. Go to Patreon. It's patreon.com/Arn Raw. That's /ARONRA. All one word on Patreon. Patreon. You could be probably, you know, do $1 a month or whatever, but he does a lot of work and he does a lot of running around, he does a lot of traveling, and he does a lot of research, and he gives it all to you. And if you go and you see the wealth of information he gives you on his videos, you'll see, you know, people pay for college for a reason. Let him guide you on some things. It's fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. I'll see you tonight. All right? Okay. Bye-bye. Love y'all. I love y'all so much. Thank you. How long was this? 3.5 hours, huh? 3.5 hour show. What? Well, we did 3.5 hours with On Raw. What? It was fun. I don't know. It was really only 2.5. Shut up, you. You're very good. No, you. You're no good. You sit down, you. Shut up. Phil Swift here to tell you once again about this cup right here, because this cup isn't doing very good. And I'm going to put some Flex Seal on it right now and make it better.